The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
As Obi-Wan Kenobi once said, actually, at least 3 times canonically, hello there, and welcome to the Kenobi Report. Switched up the introduction because I felt the Force was telling me to evolve after that wonderful episode. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok, happy to be looking towards the future, evolving and making changes together, but also saying hello there because it's fun.
Look, sometimes letting go is the only way you're going to see Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that is the main lesson of this episode. There are a lot of great big ideas, and we are happy to be here to discuss them. This is episode 5 of the Kenobi Report, discussing part 6 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi television show. It was about 42-ish minutes of actual story once you get past all of the credits and all of the previously on, and there was a lot packed into this. There was some rumors, some whispers that it was going to be like 90 minutes, but I was really happy that that there was so much in this, and that the pacing was, I think both energetic and exciting, but also really taking its time, and it the beats that it had to. So I was happy with 42 minutes. Ken, did you have any length anxiety about part 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
I always have length anxiety, yes, but I got to tell you, I saw the 51 minutes, and you're right. You take out the trailer, the preview, the previously on, and the credits, and you're like left with far less than that. And I had a little bit of it. I was close to believing those rumors because I wanted those rumors to be true. A 2-hour finale. Let's do it. Like, I wanted that. But I think I kind of learned my lesson going into some of the later seasons of Game of Thrones, where there was rumors that, less episodes per season, but longer. Like 2-hour movies every week, and then that was not the case. There's still budgets and story, and you're right. The pacing was energetic, but took its time. So in the end, really happy with that. Really happy.
Yeah. It really felt right to me in the tone and the pacing of the exciting parts, really moving and being entirely swept away, and then the slower contemplative parts and the lovely parts to wrap everything up felt like they were at the right tempo. I think there's a part of it where you're just like, you want to make sure that the story has plenty of time to wrap up. But then there's also just, I think, partially Ewan McGregor being so amazing that you really would just be like, hey, do you need another 40 minutes to just clean your cave? Because I would watch you do that. I would watch you clean that cave for an additional 40 minutes.
And let's be honest, watch him move into the hut. No regrets. But I was like, I would love to see him like placing things in the hut, going, maybe the chest goes here.
Yeah, it ends with him bartering with Jawas to purchase the chest. Would be the post credit scene if it was that kind of show. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna get into this. I'm gonna say we're gonna get into this like 7 times, but we're gonna begin to get into this. We always like to look at the writing credits. The teleplay by Joby Harold, ampersand, and Andrew Stanton, and then a normal word and Hossein Amini, and then story by Stuart Beattie, and word and Joby Harold, ampersand Andrew Stanton. We've been having fun kind of reading the tea leaves of credits about the history of the project, and I think this is very telling now that we've seen all the credits, seen the shape of it, that there's a lot in the beginning and a lot in the end that is being credited to writers who worked on earlier versions of the story, which to me really speaks to the way it was shaped and then the way it was kind of changed to expand it, I think, particularly in parts 4 and 5, to give it a little bit more of an episodic television shape while still being one big adventure. You have any writerly thoughts on this, Ken?
A well-said breakdown of that. It definitely seems you got like, I was in my head kind of going, Stuart Beattie must have, the Vader fight was his, but then maybe Reva got added with the Hossein Amini draft. And so he's got that stuff part of it. And I was just dishing out credits that I have no knowledge about. I just was like, and you get a credit and you get a credit for this. But it was a lot of fun, and it's a lot of work. And just, again, we said it early on, we'll say it again, like all roads do kind of lead to Deborah Chow and the performers and all they have to take all those versions and all those tales and make it cohesive on the set and make it cohesive in the editing after. Let's talk about that too. But big round of applause to do this, because this is how a lot of like good concepts die in Hollywood when the 30th writer has to get hired to fix it. And you've seen some of those big tentpole movies go in that direction over the years. And for this one to work as well as I feel it did in the entire series, with so many different versions and so many different hands having touched it, but still getting a credit, which means that a lot of elements remained. I really just, it's been important and fun to track. And I think a good job all around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just, wanting to give credit where credit is due for writers, I think obviously the general shape, the big picture shape of this story has been in place for a long time, which is why Stuart Beattie, who worked on the film version, is still getting credit. And also just want to give props to Hossein Amini, who got some script by and teleplay by credits, which means I think some of his individual lines, his wonderful dialogue is present. So, props to them, as well as, of course, Deborah Chow, who did indeed direct everything, pull it all together, and give it the heart and spectacle and everything that makes it what it is. Final thing I'll throw out there about the credits, I believe Liam Neeson joins Harrison Ford in Rise of Skywalker in the not credited cameo club. That's just fun.
Yeah.
We'll dig into at some other time. But for now, let's talk about setting the scene. We always like to talk about our own moment of sitting down, how we prepared ourselves as fans to watch this epic conclusion. Was there anything different for you this week?
You know what? I've loved this series, just absolutely loved it. And of the Disney Plus era, this has been my favorite experience so far. And I love Mando, I love Boba Fett, I love Bad Batch, but this has been my favorite experience so far. So I think I was at a little bit of that. I don't want to say goodbye yet. So when I know I have to say goodbye, this gets into my personal life a little bit here. When I know I have to say goodbye, I do it rather quickly. When it comes down to it, I mean, that includes to get like real personal, but like grandfathers and grandmothers and last looks and last conversations. I get to a point where I'm like, this is it. This is the moment. And we both need to go. Like, we both need to move on. Like, I have a real big way of approaching that in life. And so I did it with this. I was busy up till 11:59 and 59 seconds last night. I was like, I'm not even going to think about Kenobi. I don't want to say goodbye, but we're going to do it right now when I press play.
I understand that feeling of not wanting to say goodbye to the first time you see this. But I think one of the things that I really tried to think about is so much of the joy that I've got from Star Wars over the years is revisiting moments again and again. And when I watch a Star Wars thing for the first time, I'm kind of like, what are the moments that I'll always cherish? Like when I watch this the 40th time,
yeah.
What is the moment that I'll still cherish? So I tried to get myself in that headspace so I wasn't too, I saw some tweets coming around of like, can't believe it's already over. We have to say goodbye to Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi again. And then that's up for question and discussion, which we will do. But for me, I really wanted to go Kenobi for watching Kenobi and take a deep breath. I did my normal things. I got a bunch of my favorite Kenobi figures out and took a picture that I shared on social media. I got some nice gin, and then I had some Kenobis, some gin, and just some meditation. I just decided what I needed to be as quiet as I looked at social media for a little while, and then I just kind of stopped looking at it about 15 minutes ahead of time. I rewatched that great prequel summary again. And then honestly, I just tried to sit there quietly and just get in that spirit of being open, peaceful, ready for whatever is about to happen, instead of getting caught up in anxiety about what's it going to be? Am I going to like it? Are other people going to like it? But just being at peace. And that was a really great way to go into this final episode.
Indeed.
So what was your overall reaction? Did you love it, like it, struggle with it? I'm sensing love.
Yeah, no, I loved it. And I'm going to try to just maybe talk about the episode, but also work in some overall series thoughts here now that we're wrapped up here. I did enjoy it. And it's a wonderful thing that a show that played out almost exactly as expected in a lot of ways, at least in terms of its core, plus many of the big moments was so good. I say that because, we always joke here at Force Center, I don't want any of my predictions to come true. We're not so much in the prediction game here at Force Center, but we talk about a lot of, what the story could be and what it might potentially mean. And that's a backdoor kind of prediction in a way, if you want to look at it like that. And this one has been discussed. This idea has been discussed by us and others for years now, And all those conversations, all those daydreams, or the great Brian Ward posters that were surprisingly, wonderfully accurate. Brian must be a wizard. Off-air chats that you and I have had, chats we've had on other shows. I remember having a big one on Black Series Rebels, talking with Alex Rubens about what the show could be. It doesn't mean every little beat was right, but it was like, yeah, no, this is kind of what I wanted. And I don't think it's always about needing to be serviced as a fan, right? I love being challenged, and I love surprises. And there was a lot of new surprises in this series, and particularly this final episode about how they wrap some of it up. So all that to say, I just, we've been sitting with these big ideas for so long about this show, for it to hit it, for it to be like, oh yeah. No, that's kind of how I thought that would go. And it still was fulfilling, because the path there, the journey there, was so fulfilling. It all just kind of felt wonderful. It was a wonderful experience as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, no, I always think of this class I took on music theory and sort of the philosophy of it, and how it relates to sort of our interpretation of music and how we write about it and write about art. And the professor is saying that idea of, this intuitive way that we sense a song's resolution, like even if you're tone deaf or have no language to describe music, that we have this in our guts to hear and feel when the right note lands and we've come home at the end of a song. And I think that really, I think about that a lot with stories like this, that sometimes when you're watching a story, you want to be blown away by notes you've never heard.
Yeah.
You want there to be amazing, strange breaks and rhythms that you've never heard. And something like this, you still want to be surprised. You want to be engaged. But this is all about that feeling of the notes resolving and coming home. Not just in this specific story with Kenobi, there's a lot of that, but also where this fits in as, to me, sort of episode 3.5 of the Skywalker saga. And I think that's what I saw a lot on social media, and that's what I ultimately felt, is this kind of peaceful resolution that this feels right in my gut.
Yeah, I'll take the old radio jock music discussion conversation path here, where this is a chorus you've never heard, but it all seems familiar, and that's why you're already tapping your fingers on the car wheels you're driving, and it scratches all those notes. I love your deeper look at it there, but it felt right. It just felt right all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I tweeted, I laughed, I cried, I made lightsaber noises with my mouth. That was my tweet review, and that is my honest review. I think what I really loved about it is that the show delivered, in this particular episode, delivered on Kenobi's catharsis. You can spell catharsis with a K for fun, for variety, so it matches Kenobi. Kenobi's catharsis. That it was so great to go on this journey with him and have him start at such a low place that I think can be very relatable to all of us, to be haunted by the past and think the present is drudgery, and have just sort of doubts, or not even daring to hope about the future, and facing everything that has haunted you and breaking through into this place of catharsis and healing. And I think that's what resonated with me the most. There's visual beats of that in the great battle, but also, like, so much of this episode is devoted to the beats of healing and seeing Kenobi truly come back to life and laugh and even wear brighter clothes and let go, and all of these things that we're going to talk about in more depth. But it was just catharsis and healing. So that part of it was just thrilling to me. I think that's the part that was really emotionally rich and felt like coming home. But then on the other side of it, I just loved the pulp adventure, the space fantasy, the epic thrill of this great battle between Vader and Kenobi. It was absolutely meaningful beat by beat, but it was also just like a thrilling and different lightsaber fight, force wielders fight, where their actions were cool and surprising, but also made total sense to who the characters were. And there were some like cool lightsaber moves and force moves that you kind of haven't even seen before in it. Right. I felt so satiated on the depth of Star Wars, the reason that we all always come back to it. But I also felt really satiated for being, frankly, a younger person who just imagined, like, how cool would it be if Vader and Kenobi had another fight? And they have it on this beautiful, strange space fantasy rock world, not radio DJ rock, physical rocks. I just felt so satiated from the pulp thrill and the action and the adventure, and the lightsabers are cool part of it, as well as the absolute depth of emotion and life lessons part of it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right there with you on just the way that it looks and feels. Yeah, I can't wait to break down the big fight beat by beat, because it begs you to, right? I don't think it's any different than any other lightsaber fight. And promo coming up this week, later in the week, we start our the Magic of Lightsaber Fight series here on Force Center. We'll have to maybe even circle back to this one, because it's really deep, but. A 7-year-old is probably going, whoa, just like I was going, whoa, back in the day. So I'm right there with you in that. And final thing for me, then you can pick up your thread if I'm cutting it off too soon there. This episode drove home what this whole series has been doing for me, and this is maybe a personal a take on it for sure, of this question of, did the show offer us new insights into these classic characters? Did it move the story forward? I saw a couple tweets of those, and I don't want to base anything that I'm saying here entirely on tweets I've seen out there, but it's a fair question, I think. And I think there's a yes there on new insights and moving the overall saga forward. But I think more than anything for me, that this series in this episode took those classic characters and gave them new insights about themselves, which moved them forward. It's so much what's going on in this episode for me that it just drove home the whole series for me. It doing that, of taking these characters, the endings, and moving them towards those points in their lives. And then that's just fun for me as a Star Wars fan. Maybe it's not fun for everybody, but that's very, very much kind of what I came to the series for.
Yeah, no, I think it zeroed in on some stuff that exists in Vader's story and really highlighted some specific, very interesting ideas and motivations and obsessions of Vader. It certainly fleshed out, Bail and Breha in particular, and also Owen and Beru in particular, and giving these legacy characters a little bit more of a chance to shine. Introduced this new and fascinating character of Reva, and I'd say like a really big thing for me is Obi-Wan Kenobi is one of the main characters of the Skywalker saga, but he's always been this character who's generally steadfast, might make some mistakes, or we might catch up with him in a different movie where he has changed, or he might experience something that's going to change him, but he's always emotionally been on the sidelines. Well, the Skywalkers got to do all their stuff. So this is massive to me, to take a character as central to this saga, as central to what Star Wars is, and let him truly go on a journey, a beginning, a middle, and an end, where he starts in one place and he ends up in another. Because I don't think any of the movies have quite done that. Lots to discuss in there. Revenge of the Sith, obviously, sure. he goes through some things, he goes through some changes, but we don't leave him space to deal with these. He has dealt with them by the time of A New Hope. So I think that's what's new, is truly getting to see Kenobi. What does it take to move on and find hope again is huge.
Big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Final couple thoughts for me. We'll talk about it in detail, but the hello there was so earned. that just brought me great joy. I saw on Twitter, he said the thing was trending, at least for me, immediately after the show. We've been talking every week, partially joking, partially actually sharing my real action figure joy that we have at least a 5th or 6th Kenobi outfit. And it is fun to make the action figure joy a joke, and I personally will buy them. But I also just want to say, because I've been joking every week, that the evolution of his outfit is extremely meaningful, right? From starting with sad browns and moody blues to ending in bright Jedi-like robes off on a new adventure. It is not, for me, the escalation and the variation of his outfit is absolutely narrative, absolutely thematic. And as a bonus, I get to buy like 72 more action figures of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Absolutely. I want the entire Kenobi series collection. There's from Butcher Kenobi all the way up to the Return of the Jedi Kenobi in a way. Yeah.
Pack the Butcher one with some meat. I'd love that That would be great. Final thing I will say, we will talk about this when we get into canon. I did think that there was a lot of Star Wars poetry lines where it was a line rephrased, or a character saying a line that they have said before, or really echoing a line that another character is going to say. And there's definitely, I think, some efforts to put some bows on things, what I will call lore smoothing, not motion smoothing, but lore smoothing, kind of trying to get ahead of like, look, this doesn't break anything. And I didn't dislike any of them, but there were a lot, and I bumped on it a little bit on my first viewing. I think because there were just so many of them, I got like a little bit of sometimes when there's so many of those, I can kind of feel the writing and feel the choice, and it takes me a little bit out of the fantasy. So that was one of the reasons. Like I loved the fight. I was deeply moved by everything, and I bumped on that a little bit. So I rewatched it immediately, partially just because I wanted to see it and experience it again, but also to see how I would react once I knew that those poetry lines and lore smoothing was there. And it really, I liked each one, and each one worked for me, and they didn't bump me on the second viewing. So I wanted to share that experience that I had, because I know that is sometimes a point of consternation for some fans.
No, hey, I get you. Yeah, and it was very prevalent. And, the show is building back to moments that we've lived with for 40 years plus. And so, I get the feeling of there. Oh, yep, there it is. Right. There's the connection. Oh, he said Darth. And we're going to talk about all that, of course. But I understand that. I understand that path. You're talking to Mr. Let me complain about the volume, yet still love it every week. And and this week, I'm happy to report, other than I wish there was a budget for ships in the galaxy. None of that there. I was pulled in immediately. So
I think Ewan got the ship budget. That's my headcanon about
Ewan McGregor himself got it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, we get so excited about all these things, and then sometimes it's okay to take a step back and think about the real world. Ewan McGregor is one of the biggest stars in the world. Yeah. And some financial realities sometimes come with that. But yeah, no, the volume. Oof, man, I thought the volume was going great. There's some of my favorite, I would say, like at least one or two up there with favorite shots of Star Wars in this, which excited
agreed.
To discuss. Let's get into then the big themes, the ideas that are at stake in this episode. I'm sure we will talk about the big picture themes and stakes over the entire series, because that's what was being resolved, but also what was specific in this episode. So Ken, where did you go big picture? What was this about for you?
Yeah, I'm scrolling because I wrote a lot down. A lot of them kind of fold in on each other, right? It's like
absolutely
title and then subtitle. So there's two. I titled this whole episode, to me, was kind of the next steps forward, and that's just the big overall thing. And there goes into the self-forgiveness, accepting the choices of others is huge. The choice to change or break cycles falls under that. One of the big ones, and this is one of the ones that I found myself really moved by. And it might be because of stuff going on in my own life and the world in general, but the power of the next generation, what that meant for Kenobi's literal survival. And one of my now favorite moments in Star Wars is Bail Organa saying, then let's make changes together. Boom. Tears down my face for that. It was real powerful stuff there. So there's some of the big ones there. And we giving up control. I love putting them on the table, Joseph, like it's a puzzle. And then you can grab the pieces you want here. Giving up control, trusting the strength of others has been an ongoing journey. I call it the Kenobi and Haja tales there. And then some big ones of course, there's going to be fear and hope because it's Star Wars. But I really looked at Beru and Owen as, actually more Owen, fear, Beru, hope,
Yeah. They instead of the I'm with him, I'm with her t-shirts, they need a fear and hope t-shirt because it tracks really, really well.
Really well. And a lot of other little things. So that's some of the big ones there. And then I cannot wait to discuss, it's not a theme, but it's just the Emperor and the manipulation of Vader, part 19 in an ongoing series.
Yeah, right. There's so much wonderful stuff that we sailed right by the fact that Sheev did appear in Hollow Call, which was one of the hopes I had. And I'm very happy for some fresh Sheev with his weird little hands. Love it. I'm totally with you on all the big picture stuff. I feel like it really stuck the landing on what the show has been laser focused to be about for me. And one of those things was the cycle of violence, right? of
Yeah.
Vader wanting to, get back want vengeance on Kenobi, wants to prove that he is the master by defeating Kenobi. Reva's entire motivation being I was hurt, I was wounded, I had people taken from me. Getting vengeance to her is justice, she says in this episode. She earlier in the series, she calls it what she's owed, right? So there's this real presence of the cycle of violence. And in this episode, both Reva and Obi-Wan successfully break the cycle by literally not choosing violence, not continuing the fight for Kenobi, and not striking down an innocent child for Reva in an attempt for vengeance. So they break the cycle of literal violence, but I think they're also forgiving themselves for past failures and centering that that's what's needed. It's not enough to just stop the violence. It's to recognize, what am I holding myself back from if I don't forgive myself and move on from my past failures? So breaking the cycle, not only of violence, but the cycle of beating yourself up about your past failures. And that is, I think, part of what gives it this catharsis and this sense of healing and this sense of forward movement. I also think the show is just so explicitly about literally failing children, failing lots of people. But the way, Obi-Wan's early nightmare about Anakin ended on visions of him as an innocent child, and how Anakin is kind of living in Obi-Wan's mind. Of course, all of the stuff with the younglings and with the children on the path, and Leia, a child needing protection, and Obi-Wan's fear that he would fail her. So much in the show about failing children, and in this episode, everyone just stepped up and protected children. Beru and Owen, Bail and Breha in their own way. Certainly Kenobi, and in all of these physical efforts to step up and say, no, the children will be protected. We won't fail as mentors or guardians. It's in this episode, and I think you were really touching on this. They don't just physically protect Leia and Luke, but they kind of give them what they perceive they need: love, care, agency, space. I think it's really powerful. It's that it's not just we kept them alive, we pushed away the darkness, but it's also like, how can we nurture them? What do they need to become the future that they want to be?
Yeah, well said to start this conversation here, because the power of the next generation. Looking at this particular series, not Star Wars overall, but these 6 episodes. If you go by that old George Lucas story for 12-year-olds idea, if you're 10, 12, 11 watching this, man, you got to feel good about where you're going and what you want to do. And you got to take inspiration. I imagine you would, right? Just seeing Leia. I mean, her preparing her outfit, dressing herself in a way compared to what we saw at the beginning of the show. It wasn't even her; it was a decoy. But right, you know what I mean? Like, she didn't even want
being dressed by others,
being dressed, and to see where she is now, that was great. And he's just got to be a boy. The future will take care of itself. So there's all that, and I can only imagine if you're 10 watching this, and how great that must just hit you. But this series is also going, hey, did you grow up with Obi-Wan from the 70s on? We've got a message for you. And we got a powerful message for you. And it starts with some of the stuff you're talking about of don't fail the children. It's a literal message to me. And it works on both sides. And this idea of especially in the fight, and I don't know, I feel like you and I could do a sub episode on just the fight itself again, but I don't know. Just to me, and I say to you, correct me if I'm off base on some of the Kenobi stuff here, but along the way, Kenobi is slowly turned towards the future. It's you said landing. They landed. They took it all home here. The themes, all 6 episodes. I think that's a great way to look at it. He was protecting the past to me, protecting himself based on what he felt he did, what he felt his failures were, and what his failures are. He made some, sure. Luke is the son of the chosen one versus the idea of him maybe being the new hope there. Leia is aligned to the memory of Padme, which is great and moving, but also, just kind of this meeting her, and it's a reminder of the past to me. And so he was standing still in the present. He was stuck in the present. And now I look at even like the Kenobi and the campfire moment in Rebels of look what I've risen above. That's also about what he's moved past inside himself. It's personal stuff as whether, I'm camping mall, whatever, what of it. It's so much that he's worked through and now looks toward and protects the future. And that's the big adult power, the next generation message for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Star Wars being a story for 12-year-olds, and also in this particular episode, maybe a story for people who need to help raise 12-year-olds,
Yeah.
10-year-olds technically. But yeah, it
Yep.
really is on just an emotional level. Get yourself right for yourself, but also get yourself
Mhm.
right so you can be there for the next generation and give them what they need and help them become who they want to be. I think just that fact, the great lines with Leia about, we'll change it together. Yep, there are a lot of ways to lead, and you are going to pick how you want to lead. Even
Mhm,
down to
mhm.
like how she's like, give her some space. Like, okay, that's what
Yeah.
she needs right now. Obi-Wan realizing he just needs to be a boy right now. I get it. That's what I think he needs.
Mm, mm.
And there's so much about, can't be there for the kids unless you're right with yourself.
Yeah, and to be clear, we're not even just talking about being parents. That's valuable too, and we can't wait to discuss this more with Jennifer, our parent representative in the show here. But we are part of this society, and the next generation is always a part of that. And how do you look at it? How do you interact with it? How do you find your place in that change? Is so important. And so I think, in a weird way, this message, this series, was split between the different generations. On who it was trying to reach. It was like, y'all need to come take a knee around the campfire.
Yes, 12-year-olds of all ages, once again,
Mhm.
come listen to Star Wars. I definitely want to get into some of these ideas of choosing the future and how that lets you evolve. But I also want to talk about this specific idea that I thought was in this episode, which is really this idea about caring for others. It's a standard Star Wars idea of, is that a weakness or a strength? But I thought that was threaded through in a really interesting way of how does it define, you, if you care about somebody? Is that what gives you strength, or is that a weakness?
Mm.
um there's some like real straightforward stuff of I'm gonna quote Obi-Wan. I think he's
Mhm.
got some symbiont circles going on of caring for one another, right?
Yeah.
We have Leia and Obi-Wan, who are obviously throughout this show caring for one another, but explicitly in this episode, Obi-Wan wants to protect her, but she is going to give him strength
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
giving him Lola, the droid, and then of course he gives her back, and it's this circle of caring for one another that Leia and Obi-Wan have going on. But then that's also going on with the path, right?
Mm.
Where
Mm.
Obi-Wan says to that assembled group, where at first they're like, you how could you leave us? And he's like, you spent 10 years protecting the Jedi. This is my chance to return that favor. So
Mm.
already right at the beginning of the episode, we have these circles of caring for one another. And then we get into the actual conflict between Vader and Obi-Wan. And one of the big talking points in
Mhm.
their conversation is this idea of weakness. And Vader doesn't make it explicit in his dialogue what he means by that, but I took it to be about caring.
Mm.
Vader
Mm.
says your strength has returned, but the weakness still remains, and that is
Yeah.
why you will always lose, right? And I felt like that connected directly to their sparring conversation that we saw in the previous episode, where Obi-Wan is chiding Anakin for being too aggressive, and Obi-Wan is saying the Jedi's goal is to preserve life, not take it. And Anakin argues like, we can't show any mercy to an enemy, right?
Yeah.
So like, don't care. The caring about people is gonna hold you back, and that idea that Vader is perceiving that Obi-Wan still is fighting to protect others, or maybe Obi-Wan is holding back a little bit even because he still cares about Anakin.
Mhm.
He's chiding Obi-Wan and kind of complimenting himself of saying, I, Vader, killed Anakin. And why
Mm.
did I kill him? Because he was weak. We've heard that before in Rebels. But
Yeah. Yeah.
what was the weakness that he had? And what this episode made me feel, again, it was not explicit, this is interpretation, is that Anakin was weak because he cared about people.
Yeah.
And Vader has killed that, and he's not going to give into it again,
Mhm.
is what he's arguing. But then even that gets turned on itself in that great little holo call at
Mhm.
the end, where, the Emperor evokes the word weakness, right?
Yeah.
Perhaps your feelings for your old master have left you weakened. So even though Vader claims to have no feelings for Kenobi, he's obsessed.
Yeah.
And maybe it's obsessed about, I need to beat him once to prove that I'm the master, because there's a lot of that going on.
Mm.
But also, what is it is it a weakness that Vader, even though all he allegedly wants from Kenobi is to defeat him, is it a weakness that that he kind of can't let go of this attachment of vengeance,
Mm.
And there's so many lines where Vader is just chef's kiss obsessed with Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
He is not just any Jedi screaming Obi-Wan when he leaves. His initial conversation with Palpatine is like, we will destroy everything in our path until he is found.
Yeah.
And the Emperor's like, seems like you care a lot about him. and then Vader's like, no, I don't.
No,
Kenobi means nothing.
What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like Vader in this series ultimately doesn't change. He's committed to his path. He is telling himself that it is all about vengeance, but there is this burbling desire to care about others. He's naming that as weakness and pushing it down is what I feel is happening.
100%. I put it down as Vader picks up on in that fight on Kenobi's hesitation, mercy, and love, which is there. And I think at times I'd love to get in that discussion a little bit of. I wonder if Kenobi's trying to deny that at some points. At the beginning of it, there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh yeah, he's out there. I will do what I must. It's all that kind of stuff. But that's in him, and that's who it is. And so Vader to see it as weakness, then the other end of it is Reva being told, no, you haven't failed them by showing mercy. You've given them peace. You've honored them. So we always talk about fear versus hope, weakness versus mercy is another thing to look at. And you're so right. You're so right of Palpatine. I wrote just that whole section down of that call. It's manipulation of Vader's emotions. It's the chess game they're playing with each other, and they're both thinking they're winning. Vader's obsessions, the obsession that will go from Kenobi to Luke. Think of the beginning of Empire. A lot of echoes with that, I thought. But I love it. Look at it. It's Palpatine going, hey, you have feelings. That's a weakness. I don't have feelings. Okay. Well, I hope you can destroy the past. Well, yeah. Kenobi means nothing to me. and then the Emperor hears what he wants to hear. Yeah, I serve you. Okay, great. I got you. It was a very, I don't know, just a theme-rich holocall.
Absolutely. A very, very short one, but it really did feel to me like Palpatine being like, yeah, look, we could tear apart the galaxy looking for this guy, but all I want is you not anywhere near him because you do care. And right now you're expressing it with only vengeance and rage, which is great. But I think Palpatine's got a little bit of fear of, I got to keep Vader in line. If he spends too much time obsessing on this guy, he's a risk to awakening Anakin, which doesn't not happen, doesn't get close to happening in this episode. But I think it's Palpatine worrying about that future.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. And then obviously there's a lot of that story of caring for others. Is it a strength? Is it a weakness? Vader perceives it to be a weakness. I think Star Wars perceives it to be a great strength, caring for others. And we really get that in the Luke, Reva, Brew and Owen, part of this. Brew and Owen just fighting for Luke. And it's so great to see the Brew that we met in the book Queen's Hope. If you haven't read Queen's Hope, if you're not sure about those Padme books, and seeing Brew on screen makes you a little bit more intrigued. We learned some different sides of Brew in that book, and we would highly recommend it. Am I speaking for us out of turn, Ken?
No, not at all. No, it was great. It was also fun just to see Bonnie P.S. Back in the role, and a lot of people might be familiar with the weird and troubling, tragic turn her life took at times. If you watch that doc, So to just see her back and having these moments, but also just not adding, but just exposing what was there in the character Brew all along. But now we know.
Yeah, absolutely. And final thing for me on the kind of the caring for others, I really thought this was the story of Reva breaking the cycle, right? Like that's always such a big question with anybody who is trapped in the cycle of violence is, what if anything will get through to them? You can't make a choice for someone. You can kind of open the door and encourage them. And, I thought, maybe we'll get a scene with Kenobi trying to get through to Reva too. And I really liked what happened is that she broke the cycle by caring about others, partially because of just pure empathy. I loved the visual of her seeing through the fog of vengeance to see the truth of Luke is an innocent child, just like she was, and just seeing her young self lying in the same pose as Luke is just this beautiful visual picture of empathy. When we try to care about others, we're also caring about ourselves. And I love that it was as simple as that to make Reva stop and go, I don't want to inflict on others what was inflicted on me. I'm using my empathy. I know what that feels like. I'm not gonna do that, and the follow up with a great conversation with Obi-Wan of have I become him, and you have chosen not to. And very, very clear. But I really like that it was about empathy, about putting herself in the place of her victim.
Yeah, and there's something that the talk of failures, right? Kenobi accepts his failures. And again, I think looking back, we've analyzed Revenge of the Sith and the path forward. There's things along the way that Kenobi does that you would say, yeah, some mistakes, some missteps, and maybe even some big failures, but realizing the end of the day, it's what Anakin did to himself. And for Reva to be like, at the end of the day, this is what Anakin did to us. And no violence will go back and change that. None of this is proposed as easy, right? We always kind of put that caveat out there because we often talk about Star Wars in the real world. So I don't want anyone listening and go, oh, that's it. I just gotta accept that they did that to me and move on. No, it's certainly not that easy. And it's not easy for Reva. And I think Moses Ingram had her finest moments in these last 2 episodes. And the long play of her character is fun to watch and will be fun to watch on a deep rewatch. But that stuff at the end was so real, so raw, and it works. It was even more powerful to me that it was so simple. You said it was just like, it was what it was, and it needed to be.
And I felt, in this, weird, very dark space fantasy way where it's a red blade over, an unconscious child is a difficult, horrific image, but it's also, unfortunately, relatable because I've certainly had those moments where something gets deep inside and I get angry about something and I want, to make it right. And then you realize you're so far out of the path of making it right. This isn't even her holding the blade up over Vader and trying to decide whether direct vengeance. She's gone so far. Like, how is taking this out on this kid that Vader probably doesn't even know exists? How is this getting me what I want? And I think I think we all do that sometimes, or we're so angry about something, maybe even something that we have every right to be angry about, and we need something, and suddenly we find ourselves way off the path, taking it out on somebody who has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. It's called Twitter. But also real life. Yeah. And it all leads to that wonderful exchange you mentioned already, the conversation with the Kenobi, but have I become him? No, you've chosen not to. Who you become is now up to you. That's great on its own, but just coming out of what you and I are discussing here of, I don't know, when you seek that other way forward, when you actually just seek to go forward, that is the choice. And that's a powerful choice there. And how she thought, this was the way she thought, and not out of, to me, it wasn't just, I got to kill Vader / Anakin. It was like, I got to do right by those younglings around me, right? This is how I help them. Yeah. And to see through that fog, almost quite literally, even more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved what you were saying about choosing the future. So I want to talk about that a little bit more in depth. Because I think it is active in this episode of characters, not just like I'm dealing with this conflict and we'll see where I end up, that like really making a concrete choice to focus on the future. I thought one of the really great things about this episode is there's a real question at the beginning of why is Obi-Wan doing this? It's tactically sound to face Vader, but even getting down to the point of Roken saying like, but you want to do this. And the way that he is pitching it to himself, he's not yet being entirely honest with himself. I think he knows it's tactically sound. I think deep down he knows that he needs to face Vader to move on. But what does he want out of this fight? I think there's a real question at the beginning of Obi-Wan being very willing, perhaps even a little bit wanting to die. When he says to Master, is just to speaking to Qui-Gon that him or me, it's got to end. He's centered at the beginning on the future of you are the future. You are all the future. Directly to Leia, he says, you are the future. You're what needs to survive. So it's positive. It's about the future. It's about protecting the next generation. But about himself, it's I don't need to survive is to me what's implied in that. So he goes into this fight thinking of that confrontation with Vader as life or death, him or me, one way or another. Whether he dies or I do, this ends today. I think this is great Star Wars storytelling. That this confrontation is happening in a rocky, barren, violent planet. Right.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite series of shots in all of Star Wars. It's so old school pulp space fantasy. Those weird rocks, the big celestial object hanging in the background, and these two figures staring each other down. I absolutely love those shots, and it looks dark and sad and brutal. It's different from Mustafar. It's a little cooled off, but it's just, we're doing this again, you know. And then when Vader does, semi defeat him, there's a great visual imagery to it, right? Of Kenobi could just allow himself to remain buried in the past. Is it a literal image of being crushed by the past versus what he ends up doing, exploding up into the open air and possibility? And, it's not subtle, obviously, that he thinks through all of the anger and the violence and the guilt and the fear of Anakin and Vader and their words, and then thinks about the twins and the future. I think there's a lot in that moment where early on where Leia asks him to come back, and he doesn't just say, "I promise," the way people normally do in television shows and movies, and you want to yell at them. He thinks about it for a second and says, "I promise."
Yeah.
And I feel like there's still some twist to come in the fight, but I think this is such a pivotal moment of him choosing the future of, why don't I just give in? I was willing to die. Tactically, they'll escape, and him choosing hope, the future, to paraphrase Rose Tico, choosing to save what he loves, not just fight what he hates, that it's the children and the future and his personal connection with them that inspires him to, literally open up to the sky and get out from under the rubble.
Yeah, and let's start there. I love this. We both we're not alone here. You're right. It's not subtle. It's right there. He is crushed by these rocks, which is, to me, him here. Once there, he hears his past. He hears his pain. He hears his failures and what he thinks are his failures, and it's literally crushing him, right? Literally killing him. He's trying to hold on, and he becomes free when he focuses on what's in front of him. So I like that's where we end. But to go back to, like, it's almost like you're posing this question of where he is at the beginning. It is. Kenobi sees this as a very binary fight, right? I will destroy him or he will destroy me, but it ends this way. And it's based, am I wrong in saying it's a little bit of based in fear? Hope might have been staying with Roken. That might be the hope. But I think you're right. It's tactically sound. He has a conversation with Leia. And I even put this in the category, Joseph, of Kenobi and his will to hold strong is something we so know with him, right? The unbreakable Kenobi. It's the unbreakable Kenobi, the fragile Vader, and that's on display here a lot. But even here in the beginning, this to me almost leads to one of his breaking points, and that might be, to me, the rocks coming down on him. And if he doesn't see the truth and doesn't accept the truth as he sees it there in that moment and move forward, he would break and literally die. And I love just knowing the history of Kenobi, all that kind of rolled into one little story here with the fight and his path to it and out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I love it because it is just such a great moment of storytelling within a cool, epic, amazing fight with lots of awesome moves, where it is just very clearly about choosing hope and the future. And then I think, but it's not done, right? Because the fight continues to evolve. He comes out of it stronger, and I think he's still in a mindset of, I think his mindset is now, I want to live. I have accepted that I want to live. I don't want to just be crushed by the past. I want to continue to be there for Luke and Leia. This isn't my time. But I think he still emerges from it a little bit more centered on, I will do what I must. I'm fighting to protect the future. And it isn't until he, shatters the mask, he sees Anakin, that I think that the victory conditions of the fight change for Obi-Wan.
Right. Yeah.
From win or lose. Right. I think it's this, he definitely defeats his fear of, like, look, he's powerful. He's scary in that armor, but it's just Anakin, and I'll match his power. I know his technique, and I will match him for power. And I want to talk more, of course, about all the Anakin stuff, but I feel like just in terms of what Obi-Wan wants out of the fight, what is he choosing in the fight? I feel like there is this moment where, Vader is willing to keep fighting, right? He's not admitting defeat. The blade comes back up, and he's still saying, "I will destroy you." And I think that's that next moment of true choice for the future for Obi-Wan is he can stay there locked in combat, and maybe maybe he'll defeat Vader. Maybe Vader will kill him. But I think that he, in that moment, really kind of chooses the future, chooses life. I think what this show ended up doing is focusing a lot of Obi-Wan's guilt on having made the choice to kill Anakin, right? That it's in the prequel summary of him initially saying to Yoda, "I can't kill him," of feeling like this boy was mine to protect and nurture, and I left him limbless and burning on the shores of hell and living for 10 years with, I killed him. And that he is choosing not only his own life by walking away from the fight, but he is just choosing the idea of preserving life. I think it's really visually beautifully told. Once they have their exchange, the blue, you can't even see the lightsaber, but the blue falls away from Kenobi's face as he clearly lowers the blade, and the red rises over Anakin Vader's as he is in this sort of philosophical, always combat, always fight. And it's just a real moment of, combat, violence, death from Anakin Vader, and Obi-Wan going, "No, I'm choosing the future. I'm choosing life. I don't want to die here. I don't want to kill you here. I choose life. I choose the future." I think that's why he's walking away.
I would agree with that. And looking at even the stuff we dealt with last week's episode, right, of his need for victory, even looking ahead to New Hope, where he's just like, escape is not his plan. I gotta go win. That's all I can do is win. And in the end, he is saved when he no longer wants to win. He wants to protect Luke, protect his son, right? I mean, just a general look at it. And I love analyzing this. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think there's some almost like word service being done by Kenobi at the beginning. No, you're all the future. He believes it. He's there. But I really like what you're saying of the conditions of victory changing during that battle. Because one of my favorite moments, it's great just in the pew, 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 let's go to the playground and take our action figures. But when he lifts those rocks, that's cool.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Right.
But then that
so
smile, good. But that smile in it, right? Kenobi's got this like, look what I can do kind of thing, which is a real celebration of power in a classic sense, which is maybe unlike him overall, or unlike the Jedi or whatever. I'm looking at just 1 second of this fight, but that stood out to me on every viewing. I've only watched it 3 times, kids. I'm so sorry. I'll watch it 4. Woke up early. Chihuahuas woke me up early this morning. But I just love that moment because it's like, but I wonder if he's like, whoa, yeah, even after he does it and he sees the result and he literally leaps from the high ground, if you want to go that far, to destroy the now left side of Vader's mask. Ahsoka gets to the right side a few years later here. But and then it's like, whoa, what is all that? It's just exposing that. And that changes his view on the fight.
Yeah, I think, that taking that physical component out and just making it about what do we, okay, I can match him, but for how long? How long? Yeah. Will we just endlessly fight? What would I get out of it if I killed him? And most importantly, I don't want to die. Kenobi being aware of choosing the future for other people means he's willing to sacrifice, which is a great Jedi thing. But I think there's this realization of I feel like I have still more to do. Which kind of leads me to the last thing I want to talk about and get into the actual conversation between Obi-Wan and Anakin there is this big picture idea that you talked about of letting go and evolving. I feel like that's so much what the end is, right? The whole end of this episode and in this show of, it's a great cheer moment when Obi-Wan's like, oh yeah, the physical stuff it's power, but it's not the be all and end all. I've got power. Let me raise these arms and those rocks fly. And he defeats Vader physically, which, I was not sure if that's where the story was going to go. I think it is him using his knowledge of Vader and using Vader's, weakness, the hilt to the chest unit's one of my favorite new action moves.
Oh yeah. We're going to talk about that for about 10 minutes later.
Yeah. Lord. Right. But he beats Vader physically.
Yeah.
I get this, Vader's still got the blade up and he's not admitting defeat. So, but he takes it.
Yeah.
Your chest unit, your mask, Vader, go home. But he beats or matches him physically. But the real challenge for Vader, like we've seen many times, we've seen with Luke needing to face Vader again, with Rey needing to face Palpatine, that these things are not just about the physical combat. They're about what do I need to face in myself that is being represented by this other person, right? And I think what Obi-Wan also, realizes and helps him, I think, choose life is I needed to face Vader. That part of me that Roken was seeing and going like, but you want to do this. That part of me needed to truly, deeply face my guilt, right?
Yeah.
And when the mask comes off and he sees Anakin and the amazing powerhouse acting of the I'm sorry for all of it, which to me invites you to ask, what does he mean by all of it? And I feel like it's failing him as a master, but in particular, it's being willing to kill him and almost killing him on Mustafar and putting him in this prison, which I think he's taken what Vader said to him earlier to heart of I am what you made me, right? And he gets to look into the face of that and he gets to apologize. And what does he get back? Anakin trying to project power. Yeah. And saying, Anakin is gone. I am what remains. I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. All great and powerful. But what I feel like is happening for Obi-Wan is he is staring into the face of this person, this boy he trained, his brother, and believing for himself, Obi-Wan believing for himself that Anakin made this choice. Yeah. And I think that lets Obi-Wan let go and move on from his own guilt, particularly since Vader is contradicting himself. He's trying to have it both ways, right? He's trying to say, you look what you did to me. You hurt me and you failed me as a master, and then you imprisoned me in this suit. It's all your fault, except for now when I want to sound tough. Yeah. In fact, you're nothing, Obi-Wan. I did this all myself. This is what I would rather be. I killed weakness. Look at how powerful I am. And I think combining both of those sort of rhetorical arguments that Vader tries to make to Obi-Wan really helps him see, I made mistakes, but you chose this. And that's what he needed.
It's how many times even in the real world is false bravado, this image of projected image of strength is so much it's knocked over real fast and no I'm the victim now. I see this play out time and time again, talking about the contradictory nature of what's going on in Vader, and so I love a lot of what you're talking about here. It's like I look at it two ways of just the actual moment of the fight of Kenobi in a way, offering I don't want to say offering an olive branch. He didn't pull up a cup of tea at a chair like he did with General Lotham in the Clone Wars to talk about things. But you're right. He there's this moment of real raw emotion, a true apology to himself, to Vader, to Anakin, to everyone, to the whole story, the whole situation, and it's not given back by Anakin. And then also I love what you're saying about how fights about you're facing what others are trying to maybe, what you think, I forget how you phrased it, but they're trying to say you're something you're not. You got to confront that more than them. It's almost like dealing with an internet troll. And the things that, and in truth, actually, I don't just make that joke, but it sometimes, someone says something in a comment, or someone says something to you in an argument in real life, And if you know in your heart that's not me, you're less angry, less hurt. But if you say they say something that you're like, oh, I think that might be me, you get even more angry and more defensive, and you want to strike back. And so pushing through that to realize, I think Kenobi has that moment here of, yes, I may have done some things wrong. Yes, I may have had missteps. Look at their relationships, all the almost conversations they've had. This is another one of those almost conversations. I'm thinking of them and Anakin's pod race bedroom of,
yep.
You know, the almost talking about love and Padme and all of it. And they don't have those moments, but for Kenobi if there's any kind of victory for him, it is him going, that ain't me, Chief. That ain't me. That's on you. And I'm able to move forward from that. I think I really just love that angle of what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and I love how much Obi-Wan is just pulled up by he's all in. He's showing his power. I think he's choosing to fight to save the future. He takes it to Vader, and then it really stops him up short when he sees Anakin, and the humanity of it all comes back. You know, and I think even though that he is taking Anakin's or Vader's word that Anakin is gone. I think we're seeing him internalize that belief that he expresses in the original trilogy that Anakin is gone. Vader killed him. There's nothing left of that good man. I think he is, internalizing all that, but I think there's also still this like real humanity that is awakened in Obi-Wan by seeing, the face behind the mask, seeing the reality behind the mask. And I think it lets him kind of almost mourn for Anakin.
Yes.
That a great speech to Leia that I think everybody probably loves. It's a wonderful tribute to Padme, and it's a wonderful tribute to Anakin. And that speech to Leia is a gift to the next generation. But it also just really struck me from Obi-Wan's perspective is like a eulogy.
Yeah.
That he's giving to his friend Anakin, who is dead, who is gone in Obi-Wan's mind.
Passionate, fearless, forthright. I agree with that. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. So I think that's for me is part of why it really felt like this is the this great feeling of catharsis and letting go of Anakin made this choice. He is gone. I let him go. And then, obviously we've heard Obi-Wan Kenobi advise letting go. To Luke in a couple different ways in A New Hope. And it's great to see him let go of his need to watch so directly over Luke. I think when he is talking to Reva about her choice to not attack Luke, that's him, letting go of his need to destroy Vader. And I think what he is saying to Reva, he is also feeling about himself by showing mercy. You have given them peace. You have honored them.
Yeah.
I think he's talking about the victims of Order 66 and Reva's friends, but I think he's meaning that about himself and about his choice as well.
Absolutely. Sorry, 100%. That's all I can add to that. 100%.
Yeah. And just, I think there's even more great catharsis of, Owen still wants Kenobi to keep his distance, but even grumpy old Owen lets go of his need to keep them totally apart, right? The beautiful moment of, you want to meet him, and clearly the giving of the Skyhopper that we don't actually see, but we know happens. And I think a lot of it really just builds to exactly what you said of Kenobi and Reva both get to evolve. Kenobi saying, who you become now, that is up to you. They have this great bonding moment where it's a pretty direct cut from Kenobi saying to Reva, you're free now, we both are, to Mustafar, and seeing that conversation with Vader where he is keeping himself locked in his self-made chains, right? So there's a great contrast there. All sorts of evolution obviously going on with Leia on Alderaan, but then it's really powerful in this idea of letting go, that the final image is literally Kenobi on the path to somewhere new, finally connecting to Qui-Gon. And to me, it all made sense. It was great lore stuff. It was great emotional stuff, but it really affected me in this is why we watch these shows. This is why these stories are important, of that kind of reminder that we all do need to allow ourselves to evolve and, take a step back from what we fear to lose and ask, what might we be holding ourselves back from? Qui-Gon was always there, as he says, and Kenobi was holding himself back by not letting himself evolve. And the whole show ending on "Come on, we've got a ways to go."
Mhm.
Just really beautiful picture of letting go and allowing yourself to evolve and seeing what wonderful new things might be there for you if you allow yourself to do that.
If I was, and this kind of goes into some of what I think connects to the overall Star Wars story. You kind of hit on it there too.
Please go for it.
If I was to subtitle this like a book or a novel, Obi-Wan Kenobi is the title. Subtitle, I would put "Change, Choice, and the Continuation of the Journey You've Already Begun," or just put "Come on, you've got a ways to go." It's a quote by God. And I thought that was a wonderful, real poignant and powerful ending. A great use of Qui-Gon. We can talk about that here in a bit. And of course, Liam Neeson was trying to hide that he was in it with that comment that came out. "I wouldn't do TV." Of course he would. Come on.
That's extra funny with some of the movies he's been doing lately.
Yeah. It's like, come on. Good attempt. Good attempt. But yeah, I think that's the big picture of it all to me. You keep using the word, evolve, and I think that's a great way to look at it. I think that's why I was moved, particularly by Bale. It's not just parenting 101 or mentorship 101. It is just human being 101. The continuing drive and attempts and hopefully desire to make yourself better, to not move, again, not to pull in specific real world stuff, but it's just things I've dealt with in my own life recently, or even my own family, my own parents, of just like, your foot is down for what reason? Because it's only hurting you right now, and you're losing things. You're losing so many things and so many people around you because you are firmly planted, not in a "I know myself" kind of way, but in "I'm not going forward." Not me. I got here and I'm stopping. And this series, and I think a lot about Book of Boba Fett too, has this like different examples of how to move forward and change and grow. And come on, you've got a ways to go. We're not done yet. The path's in front of you. Always.
Yeah. The past is with you, but the future is ahead. And I think it speaks to what was going on with Obi-Wan, of being willing to be like, Obi-Wan is a proud, good, kind Jedi, and willing to sacrifice himself for the future. But there's that real question of like, but is that necessary? Is now your time, or do you still have a ways to go? Do you still have, things you need to do? And I feel like that's a great part of that end beat too, of like, now is not your time. This is not your destiny yet.
And I love what you say. If the past is with you, Tala, rest in peace, Tala. And Terra Farma had a very impactful moment and a very impactful thing in this story. And it just, it'll be, I think it will become more powerful over time on rewatches of the series, of you just whole thing. Some things can't be forgotten. And that is scary. That is really scary. Like we always say, again, bringing in that caveat, all these big life things are not easy. Not suggesting it, but the beauty of these morality tales and plays is that, like, here's just some things to consider and some things to work to. And I think you saying right there, the past is with you, and Palpatine's the one going, kill it, don't learn from it. And then Kylo picks up on that energy later on, as we know. That's the point of that. That's the point of why it's in those stories, and why the old evils are using that kind of stuff. Because it's just simply about moving forward. And I always say Star Wars is telling you your journey has already begun. You might not be able to see it, and you might have to find ways to see it. Look at Qui-Gon teasing Obi-Wan right here the whole time, buddy. But it's powerful. It's powerful. Change, choice, and the continuation of the journey you've already begun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do, in that spirit, love that Kenobi leaves both Luke and Leia kind of with a token of the past that will help them move into the people they're going to become, right? That holster and the Skyhopper, they're both like, you're on slightly different trajectories, as we've joked about and admire, but it is like it's a little token from Kenobi that from the past that will help them move toward their future, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things that just little things that I think reflect themes or storytelling of Star Wars. We're going to talk a lot about the kind of more direct canon stuff, but I think it'll be really great to have conversations about Kenobi's choice of, like, obviously it's wonderful mercy to walk away from Vader, but that question of like, but he had him, kind of broken down. It was amazing to see somebody take it to Vader in the way most people can't.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some great Star Wars poetry there of, not Kenobi necessarily thinking, well, Vader is, no one should ever touch a hair on Vader's head. That was a poor choice of words. Apologies to Vader's burnt head.
Sorry.
But there's some rhythm there with, Luke saying, I can't save Kylo right now. I'm not the person to do it. And it would break me to kill him. This is not the time. This is not the place. I am not the person to do this. And I felt there's some really rhythm with what was going on with Kenobi, saying, I have hated myself for 10 years because I chose to kill him. And even if he's not the boy I trained anymore, this is not for me. I am not the one to bring the sword to this man.
To me, this is the unbreakable Kenobi, and he comes to the edge of that line so many times during this even episode, but the series, right, and probably has for the last 10 years. We could say we find him broken, but the strength of Kenobi during the Clone Wars, as you and I have discussed, literally getting punched in the face time after time. Literally, his one true love killed in front of him, and he does not break. And this, I loved looking at this guy after on the shores of Mustafar. Maybe that's the first big break in his life, right? And to recover from that, and I think what you're discussing right there, and you could look at it from a what if, well, look, if you kill him there, maybe the Empire, it's a big enough blow, and maybe this doesn't happen and this doesn't happen. And that's at best fun kind of strategy of the rebellion versus the Empire later on, but it's what you're saying there. It also absolutely makes me think of Luke over Ben. And that shadow passing in that moment of fear versus hope. It really always comes back to that. But for him to walk away, because we do know what happens. Yes, there's a lot of death and pain yet to come. That might be hard for some to justify for Kenobi to do this. And I'm just talking about the hands of Vader, not even the Empire.
Yeah.
But what it leads to, and what it truly leads to, and a true sense of victory and a true sense of redemption, and that's Luke. In this moment, Leia has her path, and she's valuable in the way, so many ways, but in her leading the rebellion, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, yeah, because I think it's going to be a question if it isn't already online, and it's going to be discuss. Why would he just stab him, and put that saber right in that exposed eye, and what you just said is why it's so important. That would then break him, and who knows what else that would break.
Yeah, I think it's very similar with Luke, with Kylo. I think Luke knows that Kylo needs to be saved or stopped eventually, but he is not the person to do it. I think there's this connection of this is a child I swore to protect. And on some level, they will never not be that to me, says Obi-Wan about Vader and Luke about Kylo. And Kenobi's choice, I think I'm sure we'll have much heartier discussions about this, but I think it's part of the reason we spent time with the Inquisitors of if Vader was gone, how much would change really,
Right. No,
the Inquisitors would just swoop in and the Emperor would have them act out all the same horrors. And I think there's also like how much of this is about the Force? How much of this is about Kenobi feeling like his life is not mine to take in this moment. It won't serve me and it won't serve him. And he is in rhythm with the truth of Vader lives to be redeemed and deal with his own mistakes by stopping Palpatine.
Yes. Yeah, no, 100%. And we know that endgame, but also to just the nuts and bolts of it, I think it is easy to forget the view of Vader and the Empire by Imperials, by the Inquisitors, is maybe not to, our view of him growing up with this big baddie. I think there's something to be said, even in this episode. I've already seen a meme out there that's hilarious. There's that moment where the Grand Inquisitor, puts his head down and is like, "I'm gonna quit this job. This guy, this guy's killing me." And look,
it's really great.
Yeah, look at Conan Antonio Moti. Just talking, sassing Vader back in A New Hope. There's not a lot there's fear, and that's that false sense of respect that Vader thinks, I'm strong, so everyone fears me. But I think everyone else has a different view of him. He is truly on Tarkin's leash and Palpatine's leash. And so to the nuts and bolts view of that, yes, that's why I said there's a lot of individual death and destruction that is caused by Vader, even going forward in the story, comics, anything else we know. Empire, absolutely. But I don't think it would have changed the big picture.
Yeah, and there's plenty to be discussed with Obi-Wan's perspective in later on. Telling Luke that
Mm-hmm.
that Anakin is gone and Vader needs to be stopped. I think there's plenty more still to be discussed. And a part of me kind of likes, like, this has always been a part of Kenobi's character, is getting to debate. Should he have told Luke the whole truth? What did he mean by that? Was that the right choice for who, when, all those things that we'll get to continue to discuss. Another thing I want to be sure to talk about is, over all of our excitement and discussion of Kenobi, both of us, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've sometimes led the charge on hoping that the Kenobi show would really deal with the line, Obi-Wan once thought as you do, and as far as having it be kind of proactively about Obi-Wan hoping to turn Anakin. I saw many people online having the fun, what if he tells Anakin Padme's last words are, we're still believing in you. And I think that what we got instead of that, which I was very, very happy with, is that just that great, small, elegant scene of Kenobi's emotional reaction to seeing Anakin and trying to speak to Anakin and trying to apologize to Anakin. And Vader's very forceful. Anakin doesn't live here anymore. And for me, that made a really, really nice connection to the Obi-Wan once thought as you do, because Luke is saying there's still good in you, but also what he's saying in that scene in Return of the Jedi is, I've accepted the truth that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father, and that name no longer has any meaning for me. I feel like that, to me, is now the connection point between those scenes of both Obi-Wan and Luke sort of asking the is there still good in you question by framing it as, you are Anakin. This Vader thing is a lie and a misstep, and you're not admitting it to yourself. And Vader pushing back and going, no, there's no Anakin.
Yeah, first of all, don't be too harsh on yourself there. You live and breathe Kenobi, but I was right there with you too, and I think it does in a way. Almost, I don't want to. Yeah, it's almost like almost a more artistic connection than I would have written. Right, I would have written the direct. So hey, Padme said this, just so you're aware. That's why I'm writing sketches and not these shows. I do think it's not just a connection. It's real. Hey, here's our favorite term, emotional canon. It's the spirit of it. And you are now not just taking one line that we were focusing on because we should. It's a great line. Obi-Wan once thought you're taking the whole scene, and it is reminiscent. And it's to what you said earlier. It's Kenobi apologizing and crying for Anakin, and that one eye looking back and going, I killed him. So it does. It's really spiritually aligned.
Yeah, no, to me, I feel like it is, without belaboring the point, that the spirit of that is there, is that I'm sure that's Obi-Wan's hope, is that the yellow fades a little bit and, and Anakin, berates him or apologizes or gives him any opening. I feel like it is a legitimate story and an interesting story to have had Obi-Wan really try to get through to him. But I also think that this is, I want to embrace the story we're presented with. And I think the story that we've been presented with is when Obi-Wan rips himself wide open, he gets nothing back to make him think that there's a possibility of getting through to Anakin. He gets the door shut in his face immediately. And I'm really satisfied with that.
Yeah. I got you there.
Two other little things. We already talked about it. I love the Brew and Owen accuracy. This is the action version of what they do in A New Hope.
Yes.
Owen's instincts are run and hide, keep Luke safe at all costs, and Brew's instinct is, come on, let's deal with reality.
Yeah. So it is. I guess you could say it ties to the big things, because it is definitely the concepts of fear and hope. Time and time again, the reason we keep hammering on it, because Star Wars is built on those things to me. But I read her line of "We're enough, you and me." That's a great line. That's a great line. Yeah. And then just the play, and if something happens to you, run, which is not a bad strategy. It's what they talked about. But then Baru got to be it's going to be okay. You don't want to have false hope, but it's a great example of them. And I love you. It's the action version of the dinner scene.
It is. It really is. Like, come on, he's not gonna. You got to deal with reality. Final thing for me is, found family is always huge in Star Wars, and I thought there were a couple of really beautiful moments of it here. Of Reva saying to Owen, "You really love the boy like he's your own," and that great grumpy. He is my own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't talk about my feelings much, but here they are. It's so great about found family. And then I've already seen people really celebrating it online of after Obi-Wan gives this great gift to Leia of telling her a little bit more about her real parents and kind of being afraid for her that, how is she going to feel that she can't hear more, that she can't know them, and just her turning to Bail and Brea and kind of having this it's little Leia learning I have everything I need, right? To me, you can almost hear older Leia saying that to Rey, I have everything I need in this family. It's just as real as my biological parents.
That's a big Force center. Well said for me. I'm going to talk more in this episode and probably more when we're going to do maybe a look back next week of what the series has done for Leia. And you're so right. Was it a direct call? She doesn't look to her adopted parents and go, don't worry, Ben, I have everything I need. Right. She doesn't say that, but it's there. And it's there is what we're learning about the character. So great stuff there as well. And one final one for me, if I may. You already said, we talked about it, but I do want to put this into the overall Star Wars story connection. Just the use of the word weak and the view of what weak means to people and how that ties to Palpatine, the big evil in it all. And yes, as the Star Wars story expands, we'll move beyond just having Palpatine around. I know, don't worry. Somehow he won't come back all the time, friends. I get it. But he is the devil. He is the center of this saga's evil. And his view and the view that flows out from him into the galaxy, and maybe even into our world, on what people consider weak and how other people know that's what goes into that is actually strength. That's actually what heals and actually what moves forward. It's pretty clear in this episode, but it's a big Star Wars thing. And I just wanted to highlight that one.
Absolutely. The last, 20 minutes of the episode could not be more clear of look, Vader's castle looks cool as hell from a space fantasy way out. Hey, I want a blacklight poster of Vader's castle. It looks cool as hell. And I love Palpatine. We're going to talk about it more. Yeah. But what do you feel on Mustafar when it's just these two angry people using one another? And what do you feel when it's Obi-Wan gifting Leia on Alderaan and Leia connecting with her parents and Luke getting a toy from this intriguing, strange, mysterious figure, that smile on Luke's face? Just the utter contrast between the fear and the hope and the choosing light is really powerful in the end of this episode.
Absolutely.
All right. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back to discuss even more Kenobi. And we are back to continue our discussion of Part 6 of the Obi-Wan Kenobi television show. I feel like I'm describing a variety show every time I say that, which I'd also be happy to see. We're going to discuss canon, action, some comedy moments, but what we really want to start with is big canon stuff, right? We'll start with some big stuff. Then we're going to talk some poetry, some smoothing out the lore, some lore smoothing. Let's start, Ken, though, with Qui-Gon. What did you think of Qui-Gon's appearance? You were hopeful for it as well, right? Take me through your Qui-Gon feelings.
I was so sure Qui-Gon was in this series, and for so many different reasons, including was the Kristen Baver's book about the Skywalker story, and saying, Obi-Wan started talking to him about 10 years into his Tatooine thing. That was hard to ignore, right? It was hard to ignore. Even with Liam Neeson going, I've never seen TV shows. I'd never do one at all. I don't even know what streaming is. God bless him. I love that man. It was, and you, sir, had said it just makes a lot of sense. You'd said this off air and on. It just makes a lot of sense that this is not a reward, like you get a candy at the end of your meal, but that you need to earn this, Obi-Wan. You need to get to this point. You need to see it. And I thought to get it this way and to get it with a lot of whimsy to it, I think it could have been in the dead of the night. It could have been him at the hut. He could have moved in, put everything where he needed, and then got woken up at the witching hour, 3 a.m, and the ghost of Qui-Gon's talking to him. But I love that it's on the journey. It's on the way. And it was sweet. It was funny, slightly awkward. I loved everything about it. Including his beard, I'll say. His wig beard.
I absolutely, loved everything about it. I was very hopeful for it. It did make sense to me. not as a reward, but as, it isn't just, phone a friend. It is, you need to be in the right place
Mm-hmm.
in order to commune
Yeah.
with the Force spirits, like what was going on with Rey in Rise of Skywalker, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like Luke seeming to need to grow in his Force abilities to commune more fully with Obi-Wan, all of those things. But what I really loved about it is the way it was staged. That Qui-Gon didn't appear looking at Obi-Wan. It was almost like, I've literally been at this sort of desert crossroads facing the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Waiting for you so we could continue your journey together, right? And it's there in the dialogue of, I was always here, you were not ready to see, and come on, we've got a lot of ways to go. So I love that. I love that it wasn't a, appearing in a moment of like deep physical need, right? But it really was like, you're taking your next steps on a larger path, and I am a part of that path. So once you're on it, I'll be right here. And then I thought it was really well done throughout the show that we get a little fun Obi-Wan snark even in the first episode with him bartering with the Jawa. And we get little sparks of witty, snarky, playful Kenobi, but a lot of it is buried by his trauma and his pain and encounters with Vader. And it's particularly in this episode, a lot of that was coming back as he came back to hope. He's got some great quips early on with Leia, literally just having a good old chuckle at a joke, right?
Yeah.
And I love that was taken through to here, that it was meaningful and it was somber, but it was playful. It was Obi-Wan like, I'm back to myself, which means, my first interaction with my long gone master that I've been pining and begging to commune with for 10 years. My first interaction is a little bit of verbal sparring.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really, really love that of the took you long enough, and I was waiting for you, it was really great.
No, it totally tracks. Totally tracks from the first moments we've seen them together, even reading Master and Apprentice, just, not underlying tension or competition, but just that's the relationship. That was it. I loved it.
Yeah, and that this is a part of the light side. It isn't just, being unbreakable and facing the fear, that it is just being joyful in the day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of joyful, unless you have more Qui-Gon thoughts, let's move on to Sidious.
Let's do it. Yes, the dark and the light.
Emperor Sheev, Darth Sidious, Palpatine, Hollow Call. Now that we've seen Palpatine back in Kenobi, and we've seen that Senate scene in Andor, I'm hopeful for some Palpatine quality time there as well. I had been really hoping, just from some of the concept art of Vader in his Dark Castle business call.
Yeah.
And then we saw the Reva call early on. It's like, maybe, but it made so much sense to me to have Sheev appear, and I was so happy to see him. In a way, it felt like good, like Obi-Wan gets to see his father figure of Qui-Gon, and Vader has to have an upsetting phone call with his mean dad. So I really love that it happened at all. Such a huge fan of Palpatine. But what did you think of the Hollow Call and in the content? We talked about it a little bit in terms of the deep themes, but just, were you joyful to see it? Did you like it?
Yeah.
Were you weirded out? What do you think?
No. It's like, I've said, like, the more Ian McDiarmid being the Emperor we can get from now until we no longer can, just do it. I want it in Andor. I want it in Ahsoka. And I don't really need, like, I'm at a point where, like, there was a couple years ago, the idea of a young Palpatine ruins the day type of series or something would be intriguing. And there's a lot I think I would want to see or maybe even learn, but I'm to the point now. And I think Rise of Skywalker drove this point home of, said he is evil at the center of it all, and I don't need to know how he got there. He doesn't represent any of those things in the story. He is not representing redemption, shades of gray, nuance. He is evil. And to even just this moment, it's fun. You get a little nostalgia pop, or you just get a little, not even nostalgia, you just get a little, there's me, McDiarmid is the Emperor. And then it's poignant and it's purposeful and it's powerful. And it is what you're talking about. It's the light side. Hey, friend, I'm here with you on your journey forward. And then it's like, no, you're stuck right here with me. It's so just fun Star Wars in its own way, but also so purposeful and powerful, like I said before. So loved it. Loved everything about it.
Yeah, it was just, anytime you can see Ian McDiarmid is Palpatine, absolutely wonderful. And I'm with you. My headcanon for Palpatine is in the Star Wars galaxy, in philosophy, I don't think anyone is just like wakes up going evil. I think something broke him. He gave in to fear. He gave in to anger. Something broke him. And what's fascinating about him and makes him the big bad is he never looked back. And he's not honest with himself about his fear. He fears the Jedi, right? The Jedi are relentless. That's a fear line, but he won't admit it, right? But I'm very happy just kind of having that belief for myself, and I don't need to see that. I don't need to know that. What I do need is as many hollow calls as I can get. I all the depth of it. We'll talk about another one of his lines, which was some Star Wars poetry. But I honestly think like the very beginning of it was probably my favorite because we saw like the whole torso and he's got that great, weird, specific way that he holds his hands. The little dangle hands of danger where it's just like, it really looks like you're holding your hands very awkwardly, but like knowing him, it's almost like, that's because at any second I might want to fly up and zap you with horrific evil lightning.
Yeah. Oh, I almost want to see like a little crackle every now and then on his fingertips. Like,
I'm sure that bit has been done somewhere of Vader with some space or Palpatine with some space fantasy nail file and the lightning going as he trims those very nasty nails. But also, I just love that Palpatine, he goes back and forth in all of his dialogue between just seething and saying exactly what he means, do it, right? And, your aggressive tendencies, boy. And then he does the playful, like, what? Did you want a candy? What's the problem? What's going on, buddy? You doing okay today? He does that with Luke in his original appearance. And I love that was his first line of, you seem agitated, my friend. I put such a great way to just pry in and like, the guy with burns over his entire body who just went through massive trauma and got owned by his master again. Like the cruelty of the manipulation and the understatement of you seem agitated, my friend. Is anything bothering you while you sit alone in your castle overlooking the place where you were horribly wounded? Is anything bugging you?
Yeah, I put that as the joke line because there wasn't a ton of comedy in these episodes, but it was there. But that was my favorite joke of the episode. It wasn't written as a joke, but just the way McDiarmid just plays it perfect. I mean, shout him out to the high heavens. Why we have him here in a holocall? You seem agitated, my friend. Such a you think, man?
Yep. I took so many screenshots of that. I don't post them until a little while for spoiler clearance in the next couple of days, but I can see that becoming a much used screenshot on social media.
Yes.
You seem agitated, my friend. All right, moving on from Palpatine. Another big canon thing that a lot of people were excited about. I guess not even sort of canon, aesthetic. Obi-Wan's final outfit, I think, does have great meaning with the brightness of those robes, the Jedi-ness of the longer brown cloak, the packed up and ready to be on the move onto the next adventure. It all has meaning, but it is also just straight up the Sideshow Collectibles mythos figure, right?
Staring at it right now, and yes.
Yeah, you have it right in your home, right? With a little bit more of the young Alec Guinness face, but that was the costume with the goggles and everything, and it's appeared in some Marvel comics as well. So how did you feel about that?
I loved it on that level. We just need the clone armor on his backpack, and we're good to go there. Maybe I guess he didn't bring that on this trip. No, I loved it. I love the journey of it. It is very purposeful with the way we see it. Because remember, we were so excited to see I'm in my blue phase Kenobi. Even before the series started. Hell, we were excited to see sweatpants, no shoes Kenobi taking a nap. But it's really just indicative of the journey and the end result of everything he's gone through. So loved it. And yes, more figures, please.
Yeah, we went from work from home in the cave Kenobi, eating my feelings, maybe depressed Kenobi, all the way to I am starting a new and unknown adventure. Yeah. So that was really, really cool to see. And a lot of excitement about that online, obviously. Can I have a long list of what I'm describing as Star Wars poetry? So I'm going to get into it, and we can compare and contrast our lists and see what we want to talk about.
Cool.
I think this is mostly in order. Right off the bat, we have Leia not only being pursued by a Star Destroyer, but Leia being pursued by Vader aboard the Devastator.
Mm-hmm.
Is the beginning of A New Hope, right down to some of the shots looking very much like A New Hope. Do you have any thoughts or reactions to that one?
Here's what I'm going to say for a lot of them. I really love them. but yeah, no, I know there's been some stuff out there of all 6 episodes kind of connecting directly to episodes 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6 in the films, right? Of just big things in there. And this one has a lot of that, to be clear. But yeah, I just, it was good to see the Devastator in action, which is weird to say. I'm not rooting.
Yeah, increased firepower. Great. I wasn't as on the nose, but definitely Obi-Wan giving Leia the gift of Tala's holster and saying, a paraphrase of would have wanted you to have it. I thought that one was, lovely and elegant and tied to these themes and tied to even what was going on with the Skyhopper later on.
Totally.
We get young Luke Skywalker quoting his later self saying, "I'm not afraid."
Who here listening to this pod didn't in your living room go, "You will be. You will be."
I'm sure that that video mock-up already exists of Yoda saying that to poor child. That one tracked for me of that's who Luke is. He doesn't fully, much like when he's older, he doesn't fully understand the danger.
Right.
And he is like his father and his mother, fearless and brave.
Indeed.
Kenobi directly quotes himself, "I will do what I must," and then just goes full Kenobi with that battle stance. In terms of the battle stance, this is something that you and I, and I'm sure many other people talked about, of the evolution of Obi-Wan using his blade from the first ignition being a very cool but very fearful one of where is Vader? I'm not ready for this, down to I am centered. I have, I have remembered who I am in many ways, including tapping into the Force and being ready to do battle. So I thought that was great that we got the full Kenobi battle stance. How did you feel about Kenobi quoting himself and saying, "I will do what I must"?
I wouldn't have missed it if it wasn't there. You know what I mean? I would have been like, "That's funny. They didn't reference that." So it's, I don't know. I don't even think it was super, super meta, because I could just see him. That fight is in Kenobi's brain, right? It's not like he doesn't remember it. So I think he's kind of like, yeah, here we are again. And a little bit of almost like the circle's not complete in Kenobi's mind. So anyways, I'm okay with it. But like I said, if that hadn't been there, it wouldn't have been like, oh, that was weird. So at the end of the day, it just kind of becomes this fun little thing for me. Not that it doesn't have great meaning, just as a Star Wars fan, it's like, yeah. There you go. Say it.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always loved that exchange. I will do what I must, and you will try. So there's a part of me that was like, had this like a conflicted emotional reaction of like, I'm happy to hear it again. But it was also like, now it's one of the ones that like sometimes bumps me out of my first viewing of like, ooh, how many of these are there going to be?
Yeah.
And is it going to make me feel like again, what bothers me about them is feeling like I'm seeing the writers rather than the show. By the time I rewatch the show, I really like it because now I see its purpose, which is that I think Obi-Wan starts this battle a little bit more in that the headspace of I need to protect the people escaping. I need to protect the path. I can't fail. I need to stop him. Just like the headspace he was in at the beginning of their battle on Mustafar, and then he ends up in a different headspace at the end. So I think kind of signposting, he's starting in this place, and he's going to end up somewhere different than he did on Mustafar. Really works for me.
Indeed. Yeah.
This one isn't explicit, but I did wonder if it was going to be made explicit when Vader does his cool move and drops Kenobi in the pit, and Kenobi's looking up, and Vader literally has the high ground. There's a part of me is Vader going to say I have the high ground now? And I'm glad he didn't. But did you immediately look at him and think high ground?
No, I didn't, because I was a little bit, I loved the Kenobi leaping on, taking a quick step to the high ground and leaping off of it to attack Vader. Again, was that direct? No, not necessarily, but I just I had more fun with that one. But yeah, that would have been maybe a bridge too far for me. Maybe.
Yeah. I'm happy to just think that one.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, Vader has that line about, I have defeated you, my master. Didn't write that one down. And then, of course, we do have what a lot of fans, I think, imagined when we learned that it would indeed be Hayden Christensen portraying Vader, all the different ways that that would express itself, from flashbacks to possibly the mask being cut. Obi-Wan does indeed cut Vader's mask, just like Ahsoka will a few years from this story. How did you feel about that repetition?
I in a weird way, I think, like you said, we all kind of knew it was coming, which is what I said up top of this episode of sometimes this series hit so just spot on with some predictions or thoughts or wouldn't it be cools that it was so wonderful for me to be like, oh, it did it and it worked, right? It did it and it worked and it got the point across, succeeded, and just was cool. It's having watched it a few more times, it's haunting. It's a horror show, man. And how it kind of lines up to that is kind of the we see both of Hayden's eyes in the shot in Revenge of the Sith, but when he turns to the camera and his eyes are yellow and on Mustafar, it's like that's the eye we're kind of focusing on in a weird way. And to see it now, to see what it's become. But comparing it to the repetition of the Ahsoka thing, I actually, again, I think I loved it. I think I expected it so much. The cut, the slice, I watched that scene this morning. It's the last thing I watched before we pressed record as I had the Rebels Twilight of the Apprentice Part 2 up. And it's the same kind of cut. It almost looks the same, which I would love to hear or see in Disney Gallery how much, how intentional it was, or just, hey, that's what you made it. But so I'm fine with it. And also, this is, I never want to have this taken the wrong way, because I think Rebels is some of the best Star Wars content. I'm telling you, not everyone's seen that. And even in my own house, I can tell you that's never been seen other than by me and the Chihuahuas. So Grace, my partner, you and I always kind of share experiences of watching the shows with people and partners that love Star Wars but don't live it every second like you and I do, and need to sometimes for the show. That might be one of my favorite reactions of watching her see Star Wars ever.
I've seen the Obi-Wan cut Vader's mask and have it spark and slowly rise.
She didn't breathe for 2 minutes. I mean, maybe got a breath in there. She's alive. Held her hands up like, and I love that. And I don't mean that to slight animation as a genre or slight Rebels. This moment, I think, will always be viewed more than that Ahsoka moment, right? Right or wrong. That's my thought on it. And so I was glad it was here. Happy the repetition. I can deal with that and work with that and feel the importance of that as a fan. But for those, so many like her, and I want you all to watch Rebels, but for so many like her, and just it probably is one of the more impactful moments in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think you're having a real Baru approach of let's just deal with reality.
Yeah.
Of I will get this evening to watch it with my wife Sarah, who's just been loving this. Watched Rebels with me, but again, like you're saying, is not living and breathing it every day, and she may or may not remember that moment. And I think that the moment is so powerful; it's so needed, right? You need Obi-Wan and Anakin to make that connection. Forget the it's Hayden and we want to see his face. Obviously that's huge. That's a huge part of what gives it power, but that's kind of thinking it from a real world logistics place, right? Putting that aside, which is important, and just focusing on the characters and what do Obi-Wan and Vader need to make this connection where there can be an attempt at connection and an attempt at honesty, leaving that on the table just because something similar happened, in animation. And again, no slight against animation. I can just really see that would be, for me, I wouldn't agree with the decision to leave it on the table just because something similar happens.
Right.
And with all things, it's how you choose to look at it, your focus determines your reality. And for me, maybe someday we'll get a great scene with Ahsoka and Obi-Wan discussing what it felt like to confront him, and oh, you cut his mask too. I think if it was this is a random fight in the comics he had with Boba Fett, for whatever reason, Boba Fett did it, and okay, fine. To me, your focus determines your reality way. I find it interesting and powerful that is the instinct of the people who are closest to him
Mm-hmm.
to need to open up the armor and see if he's still in there.
Yeah.
And see if it makes a difference to him, see if it makes a difference to you. It makes a lot of sense as a tactic for the people who are closest to him.
Oh yeah, very much so. And look, for Vader, it's like, buddy, unless you change, this is going to keep happening to you. People you love are going to crack open your helmets, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and look where it ends up, where he finally takes the mask off, or asks to have the mask off, and does not want to put it back on in the end, and finds true peace there, right? Like,
yeah,
and even going back to the shot in Revenge of the Sith, the epic shot of the mask coming down and the breath and all that stuff. The mask is powerful. The mask is it is one of the most important symbols in pop culture history, and to see it used in this way, I'm happy it was there. I really love that moment.
Yeah, and it does. I love that you're bringing in, the final unmasking into it, because it does add power to the, Luke is the one who finally helps him truly remove the mask of his own will. Is really powerful. Mm-hmm. Moving on, then we have some good Star Wars poetry where Obi-Wan says to Vader, after he says he has killed Anakin, then my friend is truly dead, which is a pretty clear future echo of Luke's "then my father is truly dead." Again, really connecting this scene directly with the hallway scene from Return of the Jedi. How did you feel about that?
So funny. This is why we watch things a couple times. The first time he said it, I literally had that mind in the back of my mind. I was like, God, that sounds so familiar. Like, has that been used in other like things before? Like a Western I watched, like had no connection to it immediately. That it was Luke's line, and even though you and I did
Young Guns too,
yes, Billy and kids say that, you and I did the scene by scene breakdown of it. It's a big moment, and also the second time around, I went like, oh, dummy, yeah, of course, yes. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, I really, really do like it. For me, both instances, it is Obi-Wan and Luke, I think, saying, I hear that you are making a choice, that you are going to deny that there is anything of this good man who is Anakin. Then I'm going to take you at your word that you have made your choice.
Yeah,
fine.
100%.
In a great sort of poetic way to say it, and a great way to directly connect those scenes. Then we got some Palpatine future quoting himself as well. He says, I wonder if your thoughts on this are clear, Lord Vader. In this episode, which echoes forward to Return of the Jedi, where he again says to Vader, but this time about Luke, I wonder if your feelings on this matter are clear, Lord Vader. How did you feel about Palpatine quoting himself?
Again, I take it as, and this could very well just be me, that kind of stuff is both fun, right? It's Clone Wars seasons 1 and until 2, where you're putting the lines out there that we know. It doesn't stop there for me, and this is the why of it is the repeating cycles. We got a whole episode that's about evolving, change, growth, breaking the cycles, and that is not what Palpatine's for. So I like that this is a conversation they've probably had a few times and will again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I like how much it connects Obi-Wan and Luke, that in anybody who has a chance, even a slight chance of breaking through to Anakin is perceived as a threat to Palpatine.
Yeah.
And Palpatine needs to manipulate in this way. And I think for me, this is why we're going down, like individually, none of them bother me. I think they all work. I also think there's, with somebody like Palpatine, it is about the repetition. It is about being trapped in a cycle. And it's also like, I think he probably says a lot of the same things.
He's got nothing, man. It's like listening to one of those, weird self-help gurus out there. It's like you're eating a cherry pie and thinking you're getting your fruits and veggies for the day. There ain't nothing there. And they're just saying the same things over and over. But, by the way, if you get help from those folks, I'm not insulting you. But, like, Palpatine's just got a few things in his arsenal because it's all just there to trap you.
Yeah, absolutely. So excited to see Palpatine continue to manipulate in very similar ways, including sentence structure.
Yes.
And, changing from my friend to Lord Vader. The "will I ever see you again" from Leia just kind of hit me like a gut punch, and heard those same words from Anakin to his mom. Did you clock that, feel that? Where were you at with that?
I felt it as both a reference and the emotional canon to that, and knowing the path Anakin unfortunately takes, and knowing the path that she will take, right, and is on, and how they both react to that differently. Now, granted, in defense of young Anakin, it's his mother, and the situation's a lot different. But I love, again, going to I have everything I need. It's 100% the spirit of that. And it's sad, because unless we got another interesting story surprise coming our way with a season 2 or all that stuff, I don't really consider she doesn't really see him again till he's going.
So that he is smiling at her on board the Death Star.
Yeah, and that's pretty powerful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then final on the Star Wars poetry list, I'm sure there might be some other stuff, but hello there. There's a lot in the end that made me weepy. The kindness of Owen saying you want to meet him, and seeing Obi-Wan through Luke's eyes, is this intriguing man who looks like he's about to begin an adventure, and carrying that toy. Man, and just for me, the weight of, having this story be important to me for a long time, and seeing like Obi-Wan is going to meet Luke, and then to have the, to me, totally earned cherry on the top of hello there. I just loved it. How did you feel about it?
I cried. You said earlier it was well earned. Yes, it is a catchphrase. It's become something. Again, it's something that emerged years later. I don't think Lucas or Alec Guinness meant that as a Obi-Wan catchphrase, nor did Akbar when he said it's a trap, but it becomes that. And it is that, right? It is that now. So, that it's been fun, and he got so close with hello in episode 3. To have him actually say it, you said it best. It just was well earned, and it got me. It hit me in the feels.
Yeah, because it is this, fun, playful, distinctive greeting. It is, a kind reveal in A New Hope when you don't know who this person is in the hood and making this weird noise. And in special editions, it's only gotten weirder. So who is that making the weird noise? R2's still nervous, and then the friendly, hey, it's just me. It's just Ben Kenobi. And then, using it, deploying it in a taunting, isn't it funny that I'm being so casual in a not casual situation with Grievous, which is what, rocketed it to its level of fame, those two uses. And I think, I really love that we didn't get, halfway through the show, a kind of sad, broken, nervous, whatever. Yeah, hello there. I love that we got it as just like, I'm greeting this child who doesn't know me, but it means the world to me. And I'm greeting him in this just fun, friendly, disarming way. It felt so emotionally honest that I think that's what I mean by well earned is it made perfect sense for the character and the moment. So it didn't ring out as we got his catchphrase in to me at all.
No. And I'm sure in the wilds of the internet, some would disagree, but I think it's how much you're just feeling it, and how much you open yourself up to what these episodes of the series have been, trying to do, and just the emotions of it all. And it is a, hey, Kenobi says this, right? It is that, but here's the right way to deliver it, is what I thought.
Yeah. So moving on then, and let's to some of the sort of smoothing out the lore bits. A lot of the things that people have been, either asked about or been worried about this disrupting. And I know people are going to have many different and strong opinions about whether this show disrupted canon. But I just want to take a look at a couple of those moments. Once Obi-Wan accepts that Anakin is truly gone and he does not see the point in continuing the fight, he says goodbye, Darth. This has, of course, been discussed a lot of, hey, why does Obi-Wan in A New Hope call him Darth? The probably real world version is that Lucas didn't know it was a title at the time. And then since then, I think different fans, and I think it's even been in some books. I can't remember, honestly, he's only a master of evil. Darth does kind of work as a taunt. I'm using your title that you have applied to yourself of being a master of the dark side. How did you feel about it being deployed here in this moment this way?
I think it was one of those moments, again, that I'll say if it wasn't there, wouldn't have missed it. but
Mhm.
now that it's there, it's I don't want to say fun. It's not nothing fun around it in that moment. But it works. I think what works for me is the way McGregor delivers it.
Mhm.
It's sad, somber, some resignation as he moves forward. So whereas the one later on can be looked at as a bit of a taunt. Oh yeah, you're a master of evil, Darth. Sure. This one is like, oh man, this guy. Yeah, he's trying to make he's made himself into something that he wasn't at one point, but he is now, and I got to let that go.
Yeah,
So I
I
took
think
it
I'm
as
in the
that.
same. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. As if I look at it simply in this, I think it works really well to have Obi-Wan be, I am accepting that you are a different being,
Mm-hmm.
that you have made this choice, and Anakin is gone, and you have made the decision to be this.
Mm-hmm.
That it all works great. I think I didn't need it to fix A New Hope for me.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's two different things. It's not going to bother me because it's great for the people who are you get consternated by why does he call him Darth? Now it tracks a little bit. Great.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it was more important that it was emotionally impactful for Obi-Wan in this scene in this show, and I think it was.
Yeah, and again, to repeat what I just said a little bit, I understand, but like, yeah, I think you put it in the script or you talk about doing it, and then the way you execute it is what's going to make it work. And I think McGregor as an actor, Deborah Chow as a director, finding the through line, finding the emotions there, and it worked really well in the way they executed it, I would say. But again, not there. I probably wouldn't have said, hey, they didn't do the thing.
Yeah. And then I thought they did a good job of making sure that Luke doesn't actually see Reva's blade.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel about that? I think I haven't seen discussion, but I think you said you've already seen discussion about this.
It's all I always take a one eye glance by habit through social media, but I try to avoid it after Star Wars content just so I can. Also, number one, just so you and I can sit down and go do our analysis and discussions as kind of free as from other thoughts as I can, and just put mine out there. Number one, and then two, yeah, I don't want any joy I might have dampened, but it's there. But I was the moment, like, even last week when she's going there, but when it would actually was like, oh, this is going to happen. Baru's got those shotgun blasters, which I just absolutely loved, and she's stepping up. I was like extra leaning forward, like he better not even look, and he doesn't. They go out of their way to make sure he's not doing it.
Yep.
Not seen it.
Already running, knocked out. Lots of Luke not seeing a lightsaber. We got this line between Obi-Wan and Bail. Obi-Wan says, well, if you ever need my help again, you know where to find me. Yeah, I feel like that's just, pretty direct. And obviously Bail says, I hope it doesn't come to that. I'm paraphrasing there. Didn't write that one down. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I love all the Bail stuff. No, I think I'm good with it. I'm trying to think.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything deep to say about that one. I can understand how some people might feel a little bit too like, yes, you're acknowledging the movie we all know this is going to, but it didn't bump me. I did actually really like obviously the whole scene between Obi-Wan and Leia, the great banter and the really meaningful exchange and him telling her about her parents. All that was so great. But then he has that line at the end of, but we must be careful. No one must know, or it could endanger us both. And then when she hugs him, she very purposely calls him Obi-Wan, not Ben. I took that as an absolutely great emotional moment and a truthful thing that Obi-Wan needs to say to this child of like, we can't broadcast that we know each other and we're pals. Yeah. But it also felt a little bit like clarity on the hologram.
Yeah, it is. And this is where this particular one, number one, enjoyed it. I think in a way it was needed. Like, it's weird that they knew going in that they needed to have this be addressed once they made the decision to have this series centered around Leia so much, right? This had to have been part of discussions. Pablo earning his lore advisor thing, which is not to turn his job into something that isn't or anything that he could X anything out of the script or anything, but just like going, hey, we got to consider this. This is something I'm sure they've had. So I like it. And I have just grown tired of we even get in some of our comments on YouTube, particularly because of course YouTube of this show breaks continuity. This show goes out of its way to not break it. And the continuity being broken is just the one the stuff you had in your mind for years.
Yeah.
That's really the case. Even watching the conversation with Tarkin and Vader again, for the lightsaber episode we got coming up, he never says, the last time I saw him was 10 years ago, 2 months and 3 weeks. He says the last time. And that's the way it is. The fact that I spent most of my childhood thinking they hadn't met since the lava fight, that's what I thought. And I know you and I have had discussions off air and hinted about it on air, but it's become a little tiresome. It has become the false narrative that gets passed around. It's this line I think was needed.
Yeah, I think for me, where I come down on it is I think it's just fine if fans have headcanon and things that have maybe been implied from stories or things that you have because you love these stories, spent years in your mind, making up what happened or making guesses. That stuff's all fun and that's all great. And if you just say, I like it the way I imagined this, and so this isn't for me, I think that's a fine choice to make for an individual. But I think to me, the spirit of Star Wars storytelling that has been pioneered by Lucas is always want to be open to new ideas. And even if we maybe at one point kind of assumed that the story in between was colored purple. Hey, wait, no, it's colored green, actually. I mean, Lucas did that a ton with the prequels. If you just watch the original trilogy, it kind of sounds like the Jedi were just sort of nomads, and Obi-Wan got trained by Yoda, and then he's a wandering space samurai, and he finds Anakin and he trains him, and he doesn't do as good a job as Yoda. And then when the prequels come out, and it is an organized structure, that was one of the things that people bumped against a bunch back in the day for people who grew up with the original trilogy, because of ways that we kind of like, well, there's this light implication, so we filled it out in our minds. So that's just one example of many where I think this is the tradition of Star Wars of asking, why not? And I think if anything, for me, this show does not break canon. If anything, as we're illustrating, it's really going outside of its way to smooth it out and make sure that there isn't too jarring of a disconnect. Yeah,
we're having a wonderful conversation today, so I'll save my drunken whiskey kind of rants for when I have whiskey. I have orange juice right now. But yeah, it's like people after I had one person I know in the space after episode 3. Are you telling me that Leia doesn't remember any of this? I'm like, I'm not telling you anything because the series isn't done yet. You don't know what she said after 6 episodes, and here you got it. And then again, what's in our head is pretty powerful, because I've had that stuff too. Without a doubt, you listen to Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan, and it sounds like eons ago when he's talking about this stuff. And I don't even talk about, no one's called me Obi-Wan. I'm talking about the Jedi. And so there's a lot of times I'll see conversation pop up of like, and then Lucas set the prequels only 19 years before. Are you not remembering that Luke and Leia were 19? In New Hope? He had already set that up whether he wanted to or not. I guess he should have aged Luke 35 when Obi-Wan finds him after the Tuskens get him, to make it more. It was already there, right? So I grew up thinking that Obi-Wan's dreaming about a wistful time 45 years ago. That's impossible because Luke's 19. So headcanon's a wonderful thing. It can be, you can use it against yourself there. And this show, that was the conversation a lot. And I just like that this moment was there.
Yeah, no, me too. I thought it worked really well. And I think in the big picture, for me, it tracks really well with A New Hope. We've been talking about it a lot. The rewatching A New Hope has a different power. And it doesn't like reimagine A New Hope in a negative way. It adds more texture. A New Hope is a masterpiece of tip of the iceberg storytelling. And a couple of those tips are Leia knows Vader. Leia knows Obi-Wan Kenobi. She makes an appeal from her father in that famous hologram and ends with an emotional appeal from herself. She is excited when she hears Ben Kenobi is there on the station with Luke Skywalker. To me, it only enhances the emotional canon, and there's nothing to me in A New Hope where it sounds like Leia couldn't have experienced this.
We'll do a 2-hour podcast about this another time.
Okay.
But imagine, especially now based on what we got here, and especially now Leia at 19 knowing the stakes, knowing what's going on, especially just running from Scarif, all this kind of stuff's going on. Who knows who gets that message? And if the message is, Ben, hey, guess what? That Darth guy's back. There's got to be a little bit. There's an emotional appeal, but there's an official appeal going on in my brain. Where, hey, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you fought in the Clone Wars, all that kind of stuff is kind of like, dear sir, here's my email. And that's the way I kind of look at it now. And to your point, New Hope has been a film I've obviously lived with my entire life. And there's times where I just haven't watched New Hope, where I'll put it on and I start fading out. Not that it's boring or bad. It's a classic. But as a Star Wars fan, so many other things have come out. I watched New Hope the other day, and there was a new energy to that film for me. That didn't change my view on it and everything, but just as a fan. And Rogue One did that a little bit as well. And not actually a lot of it. But this one brought some special new energy to almost every scene in New Hope that I haven't experienced in decades.
For me, this is the third time A New Hope has been revolutionized by storytelling that's come before, because the prequels certainly did that, right? Like every moment with the discussions of anything about Obi-Wan and Vader it's now the end of a story that we've seen the beginning of, and it was never before the prequels came out. Then Rogue One came out, and you're watching, Han debate whether he should, step up, and you want to scream at Han like, do you know how many people gave their lives? And it was revitalized after Rogue One, and it is revitalized isn't the right word, because if there had never been another Star Wars movie, that movie would be beautiful and great. It's additional gifts. This is the third time I've been gifted to see A New Hope in a new light with this Kenobi show.
And we're going to get more storytelling. It's a new eras. We got the High Republic era. So to the conversations of, I'd love to have something new. I understand it, even though I want to live in this time period for the rest of my Star Wars life. I understand it. I'm excited for Acolyte. I'm excited for a lot of other things coming too. I really do. As Star Wars grows, it needs to change. I agree with some of the comments coming out of the Kathleen Kennedy interviews and Taika Waititi. Totally agree. But it doesn't hurt to also have this helping restoke your love for a movie that literally was one when I first saw. And to have me now come back and go, I want to sit down and watch this in a way I haven't watched in years. That's valuable to me as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, very exciting. Last thing for my list of lore smoothing is getting a real different sort of emotional why Obi-Wan lives out beyond the Dune Sea. They wrestle with this a little bit in the Kenobi book, the John Jackson Miller one. It's kind of got its own take. But I think this is an understandable one as the story slowly develops and the idea becomes Kenobi is on Tatooine to watch over Luke. And then it's one of those logic things that fans have said, like, shouldn't he be a little closer? And I thought this was taking something that exists in the film and making it work in a different way. For me, kind of addressing it that I enjoyed, because it's so much about Obi-Wan's emotional journey of, I am clinging to what I think is the mission. I am, like a hawk, floating over this kid, just looking at him, and then having this growth to say, I need to be able to give him space to just be a child. I need to give myself some space to be a fully formed individual. I'm still here. I'm still watching out for him. But I have to let go a little bit, and I have to have a little bit of faith.
And I have more value to him if I'm more whole and complete, right? Versus what you're describing earlier. Yeah, I love it. And I love, because that's, again, something that maybe I hadn't fully considered, that he hadn't even met him in these 10 years, just been watching from afar and leaving gifts. I don't know. I found that particularly powerful.
Yeah, and yet another, to me, great connection to A New Hope, because Luke clearly has met him. He is aware of who he is. And there's been stuff in comics and all that, but it was great to have it here.
Yeah.
Any other canon thoughts?
The only one, I put it, I guess, in kind of emotional poetry, the rhyme of, here is Leia watching someone else leave her to go confront Vader. And that's something that will come later on. And seeing the 10-year-old version, understandably upset, understandably, confused and in turmoil about it, but then kind of accepting it. And the giving of Lola was just amazing. And then taking that to watching Luke go on and not wanting him to leave, not understanding until she gets a big picture, but letting him go. Just seeing those two, the bookends of it, I particularly enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, no, I really, really that's a great pull. Yeah, and I really do love these moments where obviously that is our Leia, little Leia's beginnings, and has many great moments and great compliments. But I also just love that is balanced out by letting her be a child too, and having her be upset when he first tries to tell her is absolutely great. Great pull, great connection, great emotional canon. We are going to move on to some action moments. There was some action in this. Let's talk about some moments in Owen and Beru versus Reva, and then we'll go to the big Kenobi Vader brawl. Were there beats that you enjoyed in the whole Owen and Beru Reva storyline?
I just loved everything about Beru grabbing those shotgun blasters, kind of going face reality. Love that line, and then just a very strong line of "We're enough, we're enough." And her, again, someone who we now know has spent some time trying to disrupt and destroy the slave trade in Tatooine, and maybe even you could say the galaxy in a whole, and having a little bit more action to her than you might have thought before. It's a great expansion of the character, and having her just being like, I'm not hurting anyone else with this. This is our fight, and we're enough. Man, that's some great Star Wars stuff right there. Those are words, but those are action. I love it.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. It's all super powerful stuff and sets the tone, and definitely an action of like, hey, hubby, I've been squirreling away space shotguns. Don't worry about it. Let's go. Was absolutely great.
Sorry, actually, I think you're kind of right. It's almost like, I don't know if he knows those were there, because he gets kind of like, whoa, what is this? That's just my headcanon reading of it, but I thought that was a little bit of that was there.
He has no idea. He has absolutely no idea. I have since taken the responsibility to every time we move somewhere, my wife kind of sets up where things are in the kitchen, and I have taken the responsibility now to memorize and look up or ask where things are. But at different points in our relationship, I'd just be like, "We own that." I had no idea, and it was that vibe. It was absolutely that vibe of like, "We have a Cuisinart? What?" I really loved that seeing Owen really try hard to fight, but it really did crack me up that he kicks a potted plant at a powerful dark side force user.
She's feeling the effects of the last couple weeks of her life. But I love him tossing. You could have tossed a container of blue milk, and I would have loved it. Just everything at her. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it was great. Just, slow her down, see what the deal is. And there was some great stuff where, he really did show his mettle and grabbing her wound once he realizes that is all powerful. I love that. Yep. But I think one of my favorite moments is Reva does what looks to me like a force slap. Like she comes down hard with her hand, and it really does just look like she smacked him across the head, and he does the flip, and he hurts his knee. And those Tatooine suns age you. That knee's never going to get better.
No, yeah, absolutely. I was like, oh, there we go. He's really starting to break down. You want to know why he's aging fast? Twin sons and that. It begins.
Yep, that's at least one new droid that he needs to get right there. He's hobbling.
Yeah. And can I give Reva some credit for her action when she gets to Tatooine, when she takes that, knocks that guy's water kind of out of his hands with the force there. I love that. Whoever that performer is, he looks like a Coen Brothers villain from an 80s movie, like We're Raising Arizona 2 or something. And love the energy he had. But love that little action from her.
Yeah, and that's another like force slap, that great energy that Moses Ingram brings, and just like the nope. And then I love Beru's cold cock waiting for her by the door.
Yes.
That was, getting to see Beru in action.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's dive into then the Kenobi Vader lightsaber fight. We're going to be talking lightsaber fights as we keep teasing, and we can discuss whether we're going to have an episode devoted to this one. But man, one of my favorite lightsaber fights because of the setting, because of the emotions, but then also just because you could track the tactics and the choices of the combatants, and they were just cool. That's awesome. Look at the cool move they did. There were just so many of them. Where are you at big picture with this lightsaber fight? Were you as thrilled as I was just by the action of it?
Yeah, right from the beginning, and it's kind of reversal from A New Hope of Kenobi already waiting. Lightsaber not out. Like Vader has his lightsaber out in New Hope. Something you and I will be talking about on the next episode there. But from the beginning, the shots, you did a great job as always, but describing just kind of the landscape and what it kind of means, but just the view of it. And then it's sometimes where I maybe poke a critical finger at some of the effects in this series, and my on occasionally off relationship with the volume. I'm still so behind the technology and what it means to move everything forward. But this one, everything about it, the set, everything about it, I was there, and I loved it.
Yeah, no, the stakes were high to have this match be an epic emotional rematch, but also just an epic, cool lightsaber fight. And I think they landed it in lots of ways. One thing, specific thing I liked is every single time that Kenobi did a little action roll.
Yeah,
it's like something that sometimes people even poke fun at with Star Trek fight choreography from the original series of of Kirk doing barrel rolls, but Kenobi kept doing those cool rolls. But what I thought was great about it is there is this sort of speed versus power. Vader is fast in this show, but not as fast as Anakin was,
Right.
And I love the way that it's constructed where Vader's, pretty fast. He's matching Kenobi, but he's still really relying on, you got to get out of the way of like every one of my blows. And I thought some of the rolls in the dodges and the kind of just like direct forward at you thrusts that Kenobi does is Kenobi's really using his superior mobility to counter Vader's strength. And I thought that was a really cool, just sort of like approach to the fight.
Yeah, no, they've really kept true to where Vader is at this time in his whole life here with the fights and the movement, even the one in episode 3. You felt it, and you felt the power of the blows and the strikes and everything about it. And reminiscent of some of the Grievous stuff too, where Kenobi knows he's got a shuck and jive. He's got a shuck and jive. So he's got it.
Yeah. I really liked that moment early on where they were fighting back to back, very similar to the sparring match, so that there was definitely some brand new language, I think, in the lightsaber fight, but also you could see echoes of previous fights, in particular that sparring match there. Let me share a couple more and then I will pause and throw it to you. I am obsessed with Kenobi blocking behind his back. It's just cool, and I have an attachment to it, to the Phantom Menace battle. He does it other times. I love in this fight where he blocks behind his back and like, cool, Obi-Wan, and Vader's like, yeah, I'm onto that, and punches him in the face.
Yes.
And it's just so like, wow. I mean, it's one of those like just kind of pinch myself for the action thrill of like, did I just see Vader punch Kenobi in the face?
Yeah.
I think I did.
I love that. Yeah, I put it down as Kenobi dribbles behind the back like he's playing basketball. He's got some skills. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other moments for you?
I put that down, and then also just a couple of times he does it, but the first big, and this is he did the bowling for what we call the bowling for Reva one, where he pushed her back into the stormtroopers last week, but the force pushing Vader, and then just it does it a second time. It's to see Vader get pushed around like that. I don't know. It was kind of fun. You're watching a fight, and this is round 2, and Kenobi's doing things he hadn't really done before with him. I just love that. Love that.
Yeah, no, I think there's a real power in the way they've handled Vader, and in Rebels and in Fallen Order and in parts of this show. He's just to be escaped. So to see somebody take it to Vader a little bit is a fun contrast in narrative.
Yeah.
Getting into the rock business, I do love that Vader rolls those rocks into Obi-Wan's feet, and then the ground slam thing is like, it's close to some video game things that you can actually do. And it was fun to see, and it made sense for Vader to make the high ground in that way. It was just a cool action move.
Yeah.
There's this moment in kind of the second round where Obi-Wan's really using the spinning and the momentum, and you kind of don't know where the blade is going to come from next. He's using his speed. But there's this just cool moment that, who knows, maybe I will be like Star Wars kid. I mean, that is a compliment. And get out, a broom and try to do this. But where Obi-Wan switches which hand the lightsaber is in behind his back. Yeah.
That's what I think. Actually, to be honest, I think that was I specifically was talking about the dribble behind the back. Yeah. It's great. It's just I love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Absolutely great. I agree with you with the force push, and then Both force pushes are cool. It's such a Jedi move to create distance in space. But we talked about the meaning of it. I took multiple images of it so that I can look at them and celebrate them and deploy them on social media as needed. But the music swelling and Obi-Wan just raising his arms and that huge rock piles of rock rising. It is a really great, cool action shot, and it's got for me that right amount of power fantasy. It's awesome to think about, but it is grounded by everything that's going on with it emotionally, and it's just cool as hell.
Well, look, I'll toss this out here, and maybe we do this episode later on where we just analyze this fight beat for beat. You got this great thing from Vader, right? This double tap your X button move where you break up the ground, and as he's saying that, he's talking to Obi-Wan about how weak he is. And here's this wonderful, powerful mood. And once again, Vader doesn't get the check by the box. He doesn't get what he wants. Kenobi survives. And Kenobi, on the flip side, has this very powerful move. Man, he looks like a wizard, space wizard at the top of his game, and has that smile, pummels him. It's, somewhere the ghost of Empire Strikes Back is going, take that, Vader. You can eventually do this with Luke. And Kenobi comes around to realizing he doesn't need to necessarily get what he thought he wanted coming into this fight, right? And so these two great uses of power with different results for the combatants, and a great purpose to that too, as well as you said, just looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's what I like about it is it's Obi-Wan's one of my favorite characters. He is a powerful Jedi, and look at all this power, and it's cool. But then it's also like almost like Obi-Wan just like checkmating him, right? Of like, yep, I have this level of power too. Is this really what we're doing? Is where the fight comes to, Yeah. Final thing for me, and we already talking about it, so let's talk about it. Man, the hilt to the chest unit, that really felt like we talked a lot last week about how, Vader's always got this, like, I need to beat him, but he's always crafty, and this really felt like, not like any Force user couldn't look at Vader's armor and go, where is he vulnerable? But it's Obi-Wan who does it, right? It's Obi-Wan who looks at, like, other people look at this, unstoppable armored brute and see nothing but strength. Where's the vulnerability? That's so Obi-Wan, right? And he psychs him out, right? He thinks he's coming at him with the blade, and he spins at the last minute, and it's the hilt. It's such a Kenobi move. It's really cool. And then for me, it had this resonance with, what Kenobi later tells Luke, that he's more machine than man now, twisted and evil. Of like a deep awareness of how much he is machinery. Yeah.
And to disconnect the man that remains from the machinery. It's just power too. It's very realistic, right? It's, it only needed him yelling which one of these buttons calls your parents to pick you up. But I just loved it. I don't know why. I don't know. At first I just didn't even know why I loved it at first. It was just like, that is just a level of, power that Kenobi doesn't, I don't say often shows, but it was just brutal in its own way.
Yeah. And that for me is what sets fights apart, is that there's different moves and that there's tactics. And that was just such a rich, fun, interesting tactic.
Yeah.
Any other action thoughts before we move on?
I do want to highlight some of the dialogue. We'll talk about it in other shows and episodes, but I just love the Anakin's gone. I'm what remains. I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin. I did. I just, in McGregor's performance and reactions to all that scene, it was really, really well done. And I'm going to live in that Star Wars joy for a while.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. The emotional ride of what Anakin is saying, and the cutting back and forth between the Hayden voice and the machine voice, almost like you can almost lean into this hope that, is there anything there? And, I am what remains. At first almost sounds like maybe there's an opening to sadness, right? And then just so needing to prove his power over Obi-Wan, like, you didn't do anything to me. I made this choice. I did a good job.
Yeah.
I eradicated weakness, right? And like, I think kind of the last thing that Vader would want to do is make Obi-Wan feel better about anything. Yeah. But I think by saying, I am not your failure, he's accidentally handing a truth to Obi-Wan that really helps him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And that how it is tragically funny in a way that Anakin's like, look at this victory. Look, don't worry. Look what I did. I'm cool. I can just, it's like he's his own fan misreading the purpose of his character.
Yeah, absolutely. So great stuff. I'm sure we'll talk about it more over the years.
Yes,
This exists for a long time and we get to celebrate it. So moving on to moments of comedy and whimsy. Like you said, there is definitely some, but not necessarily as many. So why don't you take me through your list? What do you have on your list?
It's a short one, but not that it wasn't left. I do love, you seem agitated, my friend, is just, man, Palpatine is just, he's funny in his own way. I like the whimsy of just Lola, what Lola represents, knowing now, and I didn't know this in episode 1, when we watched it, episode 1 and 2, when we watched it in Celebration. I didn't know the connection to young Carrie Fisher and a pet bird named Lola. And that just made me love this little droid even more. And shout out to one of our listeners who tweeted out that I think it was Gwendolyn tweeted out. It reminded her of Batteries Not Included, a great movie from the 80s. And it absolutely reminds me of Batteries Not Included. So I just love the whimsy based around that character and the power, the purpose, and Leia kind of realizing, all right, he just admitted to me he's afraid. I will try to help him and his fear by giving him Lola, something that's so important to me. It's so sweet, so great. And then the reunion. So many wonderful things in that scene, but just that little Lola or toothy grin and everything. I just love that there. And then my final one, I feel as though I'm hogging them all because there's not a lot. No. I do love Grumpy Owen going, I'm not that patient in the shop.
No, a lot of great stuff. I love Lola having the weird little like an almost Scooby-Doo was this little bit of like silly Star Wars whimsy within this like dark epic confrontation. I love the Kenobi turn of phrase of who am I to celebrate a lady and her droid, and I wonder if he's thinking to himself like, I hope she never hears the kind of things I've said about droids to Dexter.
I also, by the way, I also took that line for a little fun, cheeky look at later on where he's got to get a droid back to Leia in New Hope. I love that.
Oh, yeah. Good call. Good call. A lot of Star Wars rhythms all throughout this. Yeah, I thought Obi-Wan trying to be jokey about when Leia comes over and is like, I have been comforting Corin Horn, by the way, because I see that people need it. That's such a Leia moment. That's such a scene where she's going to go as a leader. But Obi-Wan tries to play it off as a joke of that, well, maybe I should borrow her too. Just opening up and trusting his kid, and then the great playoff of it. But honestly, it was a funny line the way he delivered it. Definitely, I loved Grumpy Owen. Your uncle's a patient man, not that patient.
Not gonna work here anymore.
Not gonna work here anymore. I actually really like Hasha's line when Leia gets upset and Obi-Wan's gonna go after her, and Hasha says, "I find she needs to be given space."
Really funny and poignant, like you said earlier. It is about ties to the he's got to just let him be a boy line with Luke. But there was a couple great moments with him again.
Yeah, just like read what kids actually need, and almost like I hadn't made the direct connection that you did of like, Leia has been left by someone she loves to go after Vader before, and it feels like, well, Hasha could probably help Han out with being there for Leia. Han makes the right choice. First, he makes that grunt that I love. He turns around and makes the right choice. She needs to be given some space, Han, says Hasha. I did like the exchange with Beru and Owen, where Owen's, worried, understandably, and he says, Ben is gone. And Beru says, whose fault is that? This is a sassy household all around. We spent weeks celebrating sassy Owen, and Beru got him with that line, right?
Oh, so great. Oh, absolutely. Big laugh in our house on that one.
Whose fault is that? I think perhaps one of my favorite Kenobi lines, again, seeing this sort of this sense of humor and whimsy awaken as he is returned to more of a Jedi focused on kindness, when he gives Leia the holster and she's like, it's empty. And he's like, well, I wasn't going to give you a blaster, Leia. You're 10 years old. And, perfectly segues into that much deeper, but you won't always be. But just made me laugh out loud. Well, I wasn't going to give you a blaster, Leia.
Yeah. Love that.
And then the holster's like the comedy gem of this episode. I think when she's getting dressed, it has great meaning. But when Brea comes in, it's like, is that a holster? And then the little double take that Bale does on like, okay.
So great. So great.
Yeah. Final one for me is when Obi-Wan and Leia are having their conversation on Alderaan, and she asks him what he's going to do next, and he's honest and says, "I don't know," and says, "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should you should sleep."
Yeah.
He's got that great hearty laugh. It's so healing.
Yeah. Oh, so great. So great.
So great. I think we've probably covered anything that we weren't sure about or didn't like, but is there anything else that you wanted to check in on?
I want to mention two things that one of them we're no doubt going to discuss maybe as soon as next week. What this show did to cement the place of Leia right there with Luke at the center of this saga is something I will be forever thankful for. I absolutely will. Talk about, hey, did you see new things in the series? Yeah, we saw Obi-Wan and Leia, and we saw Leia, and we saw Leia at 10, and we saw so many important things. I've been consistently just captivated, inspired, and moved by little beats with her. Brea said in episode 1, then do something more. And it comes back to here. All right, I'm taking this role. I've got my holster, got my boots. I got myself dressed for this meeting. And Dad, I want to make some changes if I'm going to do this. And I'm going to let's make some changes together. That's really inspirational, powerful stuff. But just Leia, man, Leia's at the center of this story. Always was, but you cannot deny that New Hope was very much seen through Luke's eyes. That's the framework of the classic hero's journey and everything. And Leia at the time not being the sister necessarily planned out might have affected some of that. But the story grows, and it's not like the legacy of Leia is one of an overlooked character. But I think you and I are both on the train that Rise of Skywalker took some steps towards her great value to the overall. There's another, the two sabers, Rey needing both of them. That's the end of the end of the journey in a way, and going back to this point, almost the beginning. Revenge of the Sith, we get the beginning of Leia's journey, but I was consistently moved by this. And I found her scenes, whether it be with Obi-Wan, whether it be with Bail or Brea, the little scenes, the little moments are the ones that had the same vibe. You remember the conversation that still pops up around The Force Awakens around, oh man, I just love watching Rey on Jakku, daydream and the energy, the longing, everything. And we know she's about to go on a journey, but I thought that was some of Daisy Ridley's best work was the early stuff of, I'm here at this point in my life and I'm strong. I'm on my own, but I'm lonely and I've got this and I got that. So much little moments with Leia, little Leia, that had that same vibe to me that I'm going to revisit time and time again. And I'll be forever thankful to the series for that.
Excellent. No, that makes a ton of sense. And there's nothing in the Leia arc that's all positive, right? For you, there's nothing.
Is it all positive? Yeah, no. I just, it's just, it was and there was leaks and rumors and this and that. So the fact that it was, that first episode, you and I were watching in the hotel room, and we both had I just was excited to see, and it's just, even when the poetry that wasn't necessarily subtle about her outfits and this and that, and I just enjoyed it all. I really did enjoy that, and enjoy the music of the series a lot too. And shout out Natalie Holt. I really think this episode, she finally unveils the big themes, and it was done with purpose. And I think there needs to be patience for how we take in stories, but also how we take in the music and the creators and what they're trying to do for this series. I really love where she did with the music, the whole series, but I really loved how these characters emerged as themselves that we know later on and at the end of the series with the music.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that for some of the big picture stuff, I think that although there's a part of me that would have still loved to hear Padme's name, I think that the amount of honor that was put on the character, the importance of the character, that Leia is not just the daughter of Anakin Vader. I think that was really great. I was so happy for that. One of the most moving things in this episode is Kenobi expressing to Leia, but also for himself, mourning and eulogizing both Padme and Anakin, and celebrating that they were good people and their good traits live on. That was really great for me. There's always this balance in Star Wars of the dark and light that's explicitly what it's about, even down to the visuals of a red lightsaber, blue lightsaber from the very beginning. But I think one of the things that was really great about Leia, everything that you said of getting to see her at this age, getting to see her take her first steps, elevating her as just as important. It is the Skywalker twins, and we've got that focus in Rise of Skywalker. Now we have it earlier in the story of Luke and Leia. That stuff is all incredibly great, incredibly important. But she also just gave, much like the actual character in the galaxy, for this television show, she gave a ton of light that was needed at the beginning of the show. We're meeting Kenobi in a dark place, but Star Wars is always about the balance of dark and light. And even when he was in his roughest place, the banter between them made it just fun and intriguing. And not only in the story was Leia being this source of trust and hope and forward movement, but in funny little moments like don't smell anything.
Yeah.
Or Obi-Wan kind of biting her head off and going, we can't trust anybody. Or like, you don't talk. We're farmers from wherever you don't talk. And her just immediately breaking it. Like there were so many moments where she just brought light and levity, much needed to both the in-world story and our experience as viewers.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I was revisiting that third chapter today, or yesterday before the episode aired, and just really love, and including the deep stuff. But you're so right. Just when she's like, my dad, friend, yeah, dad. It's just funny stuff.
So good. Yeah. So good. And yeah, I really second you on the music as well. I thought the new music was great and powerful, and I liked that it built to using some of the familiar motifs as we got to the conclusion. I was really thrilled by just some of the kind of classic chase music for the Star Destroyer was great.
Yes.
The way we heard Leia's theme over the description of Padme and Anakin, like it was like Anakin and Padme gave birth to that song. Like that's the spirit that they created in Leia, and that's who this young woman is becoming, is that theme. Incredibly powerful and just great music across the board, in my opinion.
I agree.
Should we talk a little bit about second season? We know that we're going extra long in our long episode, so we will wrap this up. But I do want to talk about hopes or predictions for a second season, or desire at all. A lot of people have noted that Disney Plus is saying season finale, not series finale, which is sometimes a tip of the hand. But as we're ending, are you wanting for yourself a second season?
I'm going to need to sit with that a little bit longer. Am I ever going to say no to another season with Ewan in the Kenobi robes and finding out more on the journey towards New Hope? Absolutely not. So don't want to bury that lead. However, right now at this moment, I feel so just full in the best way possible. That I am okay if we don't revisit this with these particular set of characters. Now, that said, I'd love a little Leia spinoff. Give me Leia the tween years leading up to Princess of Alderaan. Just call the series Leia, Princess of Alderaan, and pay homage to Claudia Gray's book and pull people forward into that story. The rumors, I know there was rumors of a Reva spinoff. I'm pitching one called The Path, and her joining and being a leader in the path and saving more potential younglings, to change what she couldn't do or felt she couldn't do, all that kind of stuff. You know where I'm going with that. I'd be open with that more than just Kenobi season 2. But that's just where I am today, because I just feel so spiritually fooled by it. I know it sounds melodramatic. I'm spiritually fooled, but I am. And I'm going to sit with it a little bit before I have a real true answer on, do I want this? But as I always say, just because, how many people say we didn't want Solo? I know you didn't, but you got it, and that is fun stuff. That's a fun meal. So we'll see.
Yeah, you know what? If later this afternoon they announce season 2, I would be thrilled. I love the characters. I love the world. The way the show ended made more possibilities open up in my imagination, and I don't think they would go forward unless they had, an idea that was really resonant. But I am also with you that this was such a big meal. It was such a journey. And for this journey to sort of end on the feeling of catharsis and hope and movement to the future. There's a part of me that's I just want to sit with that. It's also about letting go, right? And I kind of want to honor that. If like there's a part of me that's like, yes, no, absolutely, give me more Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi as soon as possible. But there's also like I truly want to learn from the lessons of stories that I admire. And one of those lessons is take a deep breath and let go. It will always be with you. So if they announce like, nope, this is it, I would be at peace. But I would be intrigued. And some of the things that intrigue me is I do like what they set up of like Kenobi's obviously still committed to being there for Luke as needed, right? He's backing off a little bit, but I don't think he's just like, and now I can go live my life. Where do I want to hang? We know he's going we know where he's setting up shop eventually. But it did create a little bit more willingness to go off world, right? Yeah. So that to me opened up the door a little bit. Again, I want to be very clear with this. I don't think he's just, I do a week on Tatooine and then I'm jumping around the galaxy. And I think they did a lot to remind us that he is still cautious of bringing trouble down on Luke and himself. The Reva thing was fascinating to me, whether it was part of a second Kenobi season or Reva's own show. I'm intrigued by I love the path idea. I had thought of something similar I think we recorded it, but we haven't released it yet. We recently had yet another good discussion about wanting to see the full redemption story in Star Wars with Vader and Ben Solo, with Anakin and Ben Solo. It is this sort of one dramatic moment. And I'm fascinated in Star Wars to see the story of somebody who makes a better choice and then has to build a new life with the knowledge that they've done lots of horrible things. How do you move forward? And Reva is set up in a fascinating way to do that. So I'm really intrigued by Reva, being able to do that. Final thought for me is thinking through this idea of like, okay, well, what challenges are ahead for Obi-Wan? How can you challenge him, or will people be satisfied of him returning to being a little bit more of a steadfast hero, where he's got his stuff figured out? But the thing that intrigued me for a second season is him heading off there with Qui-Gon on the beginning of a new journey. There's just so much in this about like, well, what are you going to do next? And like, we've got a long ways to go, but also just the actual, like, it's not like, hey, I saw Qui-Gon, I get my gold star, I get to be a Force spirit. Yeah. We know from Clone Wars that it's a journey into yourself. Yoda had to face a bunch of trials, and that's intriguing to me of like what trials, physical, emotional, does Obi-Wan need to face to become one with the Force in the way that he ultimately does. That's intriguing to me. That's one of the next challenges for Kenobi.
There you go. Season 2, you got the Wills there. You go to have little, demon Kenobi chasing him like the one Yoda fought. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do it. Exactly. And there's an argument to be made. He faced a lot of those things in this this show, but who knows? Who knows? If anybody hasn't watched them in a while, I highly recommend rewatching the last few episodes of season 6 where Yoda goes on his trials. Some just bonkers fantasy stuff going on there, and maybe Obi-Wan can meet some Force priestesses with multiple masked faces. That would be fun. All right, we are going to wrap up as always with a merch question. What merch, what fun would you want based on this final episode, Ken?
Look, we get a new broken mask Vader figure, Hayden's eyes. I want that. And then I need a Beru and Owen defending the Homestead and Luke playset, including those shotgun blasters. I need that. Cinema scenes.
Absolutely. We're of the same mind. I definitely need a battle damage Vader. They're probably announcing it as we record. But here's my thing. It's got to come with a rock to throw at him. Like, hey, kids, you can be Obi-Wan. Throw a rock at Vader.
Well, they sell those official Force rocks, right? Don't they sell those?
Yep. I got some from Celebration.
You did? That's
really
right.
Float. Yep.
That's right. I watched you do that. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. And we're of the same mind. I love those old cinema scenes they first did for Power of the Force. It was always 3 figures in a scene, and I had so much fun thinking about what scene would it be that they could make. And the one that I want them to make for this show is a cinema scene called Gifting of the Skyhopper. And it comes with Grumpy Owen. It comes with, Explorer Obi-Wan in 3 3/4. You got young Luke, and then just, the little tiny toy of the toy of the Skyhopper. That would make me so happy.
Love that. Just include Beru with blue milk and then a shotgun blaster on her shoulder.
When they make the brew, she's got to come with blue milk and space shotgun for sure. All right, we went extra long, but I don't think anybody who's a regular listener is surprised by that. There's so much to discuss in this final episode, and we'll continue to discuss this amazing show. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, you can find us on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. If you're listening during this week, we are going to be doing another live Q&A this Friday, June 24th. We're kind of throwing it out there kind of quick. We're going to have fun doing that. The Kenobi questions, I'm sure, wrapping up there. Hey, you can also find us on Facebook at Force Center Podcast. Podcasts available in a lot of different spots, including Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more. If you're on there listening and you can rate and review, we'd love if you would do that if you want. You can get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. You can get an audiobook on us by going to audibletrial.com/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. I'm at Napzok or catnapzok.com. Joseph, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out all of my other adventures on my website, josephscrimshaw.com, including a link to the most recent episode of my other podcast, Obsessed, where my wife Sarah interviewed me about the character of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So check that out if you would like. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for the beautiful words, hello there, this has been the Kenobi Report.